Did you ever watch like? Because I know British ones before you came over here.
Before I came over here.
Yeah, yeah. It's like Graham Norton, Jonathan Ross, any of like the big leagues.
No, I pretty much watch all of them after I came here, bro.
Um,
The ones I really liked were all American. Like my favorite is Conan O'Brien.
Conan was
you know,
fantastic.
he has these skits he has with his Italian producer. Have you seen them?
I think I've seen a couple of them.
His
Yeah.
name is Jordan Schlansky. Sorry if I butchered your name, but he is fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Because he's playing himself, but he exaggerates his character, right?
Oh, okay, cool.
And he kind of gets bullied in
Yeah.
all the films. And whenever I watch those films, for some odd reason, he reminds me of you. For some
Wow,
odd reason.
thanks.
Take that as a compliment, because I love this Jordan guy. I think he's
Yeah, I'll
he's
have to rewatch them because it's so sad that Conan's not a thing anymore. But I wanted to go on record that I think Jimmy Fallon gets too much. I'm allowed to curse on this, aren't I?
Of course, this is R-rated.
R-rated. I think Jimmy Fallon gets way too much shit. I think he's incredibly talented. I think yes, he absolutely needs to show up every once in a while.
Yeah.
But I think compared to someone like, because don't get me wrong, I like Kimmel, but sometimes Kimmel is just a bit like. I think what I love about Jimmy Fallon is that he's, because he was always a massive nerd. Because it was that. Did you ever see that video where Nicole Kidman came onto his talk show?
Yeah,
And it turned out
she was like, I had a crush on
I had
you.
a crush on you, yeah. So, but yeah,
he laughs too much. Fake laughs. Too much, I would say. That's the problem most people have with him. Like, oh, it just becomes cringy after a while because he keeps on laughing even after the joke is dead, you know?
yeah, he is.
But I like him more than the other Jimmy.
Jimmy Kimmel can be a bit irritating. Matt Damon all the way, but yeah, Conan was the OG. Well, he was he eventually became the longest serving American talk show host. I think it was
Yeah.
like 30 something years.
Yeah, his run was pretty epic, and his programs were fantastic because he had this series where he traveled around the world.
Yeah, I saw sections of that.
Mhm. He traveled to Italy. He traveled to parts of Middle East. He traveled to Africa. He traveled to lots of places, and he's the type of guy that is genuinely funny, like globally funny. To everywhere he goes, people kind of get attached to his type of comedy.
Well, I think that's a really important factor to make regarding comedy is that it's a very. You have to have a lot of intelligence to be a good comedian.
Yeah.
I think
He
because
went to Harvard or Cambridge.
he went to Hogwarts. He went to Harvard in Massachusetts. But yeah, he's a very intelligent man. But
He
that's
is
not
very intelligent, yeah.
completely unheard of. I think it was electrical engineering, but Rowan Atkinson, who was one of the, it still is, in my opinion, one of the great comedians that England had to offer. I never was a big fan of Blackadder, but Mr. Bean was incredibly popular in my household. We still watch the Christmas episode every year, and even my
Yeah.
Italian relatives. 'Cause I remember having the DVDs when I was a kid, and I remember some Italian relatives coming over and watching it because they loved it so much. And I think because his style of comedy with that particular character and what he did with the great Richard Curtis is that because it was all physical comedy, because that's what I think as well.
Yeah.
British comedians are very good with physical comedy. You look at, say, John Cleese, he's a very physical comedian.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Because Mr. Bean, his appeal is again to all age groups. Because when I watched him, he's the only one I knew from England.
Yeah.
Like comedian. Because that's the only one. That's the only comedian who got ironically dubbed. His cartoon got dubbed in Iran. I don't know what there was to dub, but the censor parts, the show. But the majority was safe to show anyway, even in Iran.
Yeah.
The majority was safe to show anyway, and me and my sister used to watch it, and adults watch it too because they're putting it on for children, and they come and sit next to the child, and they get used to that, So that's why it's a household name, probably the biggest household name when it comes to comedy in England. Wouldn't you say?
I'd say so. He's certainly up there within the past 30 years. But I think that's incredibly interesting regarding quote unquote like kids films is that it's why you shouldn't patronize children when it comes to making cinema for them, because who's going to take them? Their parents. So it has to be enjoyable, which is why Disney Pixar is so stellar and so popular, because regardless of your age. So when Toy Story 4 came out and made $1 billion or whatever dollars, there was kind of a lot of jokes, especially going on social media, like there's no children under like 10 going there because it's going to be all the adults that remember the first one from 1995.
Yeah.
So I think, but that's incredibly important as well. Like when you're working for quote unquote. So anyone that kind of is interested in making television or cinema for children, it has to, I'd say more family than children, because I guess it's different from like the sort of 5 and under like Teletubbies or some.
Yeah, because when you say
stuff like
children,
that.
I think of Papa Pig. When you say family, I think of Polar
Dominic
Express.
family.
I think of family. I think of, it's Disney films, Lion King,
Yeah, no,
Toy
absolutely.
Story, Cars, whatever, whatever
Yeah.
comes to your mind. Home Alone.
Well, I don't know if you ever watched it. I'm quite a big fan of. There are some really. There's such an interesting conversation regarding comedy, which we'll not go down that rabbit hole, because that's a hell of a one. But I think there are, despite some popular belief, I think there is a lot of stellar comedy out there right now,
Yeah.
especially from England. I think one of them, I believe he won the King of Comedy Award twice in the UK, and that's the great Jack Whitehall. I think he's one of the best that we have to offer right now. Not the best actor, sorry, Jack.
I
But
don't remember one of his. Tell me one of his famous work. Famous
Um,
movies.
well, like TV shows or like.
Yeah.
He was in Bad Education, which was very popular. The movie was okay.
Because I never watched that.
It is quite funny. It's very there's this one episode, the one that just came to me, where like his character has webbed feet but is allergic to chlorine.
Yeah.
Genius. But he has to. So it's something to do with like synchronized swimming or something daft like that.
Yeah,
And
it's interesting because they used to put in so many adult jokes in children's cartoon or children's media.
it
that
is
we missed.
quite. Yeah.
Wait, adult jokes. That's what came up. Oh, yeah.
Dirty Jokes Challenge 1, I would not survive that at all.
I'm sorry, are we back? Oh, all right, girls. Lovely talking with you. Yes, anytime you'd like some tips on acting, that'd be great.
Oh my god.
I'm not going to survive this at all.
Somebody untie the knot in this guy's cord. Why don't you just shut off?
That's good tea. Thank you, courtesy of.
What are you gonna do? Suck me to
I mean, you can see
Jesus Christ.
because I remember watching these shows when I was a kid, and I wasn't thinking about the narration, the type of jokes. I could just there's something about this medium that as a child you just love to look at.
Well-
You get addicted to, and most of the films I watched as a kid I loved, despite them being shit, like objectively being shit. The narrative, the plot,
Well,
the
yeah,
story.
no, absolutely. There was, I think that's the thing with nostalgia, which we'll kind of go into later with a very popular film that recently came out, known as Spider-Man: No Way Home.
I thought they were going to mention Titan. What's
Titan.
Like, oh, okay,
we
okay,
can
that's
talk.
not it.
We can talk about Titan.
Yeah,
or as I think,
this is a weird segue into Titan, but we're gonna go into it soon, okay?
or, as
Just
I,
keep
or as I call it, Transformers Triple X.
Yes,
I've seen it twice, and I was drunk both times. But
it was
yeah.
in many people's top 10 list. I was surprised. Titan.
Well, I think that's the. I can't remember who directed the movie, but there was a film that came out a few years back, which wasn't particularly my cup of tea. But
By the way, have some cookies with your tea.
thank you. I will certainly do that. Sorry, people at home, you can't have any of my cookies. Sorry. But yeah, no, there was a film called Raw that came out, which by the same filmmaker as Titan, or as I call it, Titany. But yeah, I think what was kind of interesting about it is that it just kind of blew my mind. I almost knew what was going into it, but it didn't. So I work in a cinema as one of my jobs,
Right.
and I love how you're saying that like you don't know. But so I'd kind of heard a little bit of what it was about.
it's
So
a
that's on
woman.
it.
I didn't think the director would be. Is it written by her too?
I believe so. Yeah. Double check. I think it won the Palme d'Or this year.
Wait, does he say on IMDb if
Yeah.
it's written by? Wait, let me zoom in.
So yeah, I had a couple of writers, but yeah,
Yes, but I think the idea might have been hers. So
Yeah.
because she's the director too.
Well, I think based off what I know from Raw, which is a film which is technically about cannibalism, but is really about the relationship between family. But but I think what's interesting, and
Family.
I've kind of discussed this before with some people about films that are incredibly eccentric and wild and wacky, but so sort of experimental cinema. But what's incredibly interesting when it's done so well is that you kind of sit back and think, what the this is so shit. I don't get it. But when you look about it, they're actually talking about some incredibly human and very real things. Because I kind of love that, where it's like, oh my god, like she's having sex with a car. That's so. It's like, yeah, but you know, when you were a child, you
Spoilers.
spoiler. But when you were a child, you watched a movie about lions dancing and talking, and that was just like, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's like when you fetishize those crazy ideas, like those crazy concepts, and you give them concepts that are more adult, then suddenly it becomes crazy. Like
yeah.
I mean, the animals talking. It's been around since the beginning of time. You know, the stories that people used to tell. You know, gods, the phoenix, dragons.
Well, even still, I mean, if you go back into religious text, the snake spoke to Adam and Eve. So yeah, it goes back.
That's very interesting. I was watching this guy a while ago. I forgot what he's called, but he was talking about how every story is stemmed from a religious concept. It has a religious background, a biblical background, because that's where stories were mostly spread around to people. That's how they communicated those ideas, those religious ideas, was through stories, whether real or false, we never know.
Well, do you know what? Yeah, I was thinking about that on the way here regarding sort of storytelling and that thing, and I think that's incredibly interesting, regardless of your own philosophical and personal beliefs. Scriptures like the Quran and the Bible and the Torah and other forms of, believe it or not, the Kama Sutra is technically a religious text from Hinduism. My apologies if that's incorrect. I think that's right. But it is a religious text, and I think regardless of whether you believe or not, they are incredibly interesting. Rather interesting stories. Certainly things that you can learn from.
That's true, and it raises the question: like, if the purpose of religion was to, communicate those ideas, now it's become more like entertainment. You know, so if in the beginning the purpose was to deliver those messages as effectively as possible to people, that also meant that it had to become more entertaining. So people wanted to listen to them, wanted to tell it again, you know? So that's interesting to me because nowadays...
Which is why in 2023, Chris Evans will be playing the role of Jesus.
Wait, is he?
No, is he fucking...
I was like, what? What is going on? I was going to put in there, what the shit?
Avengers!
Do you remember that?
Jesus Christ.
Do you remember that clip from him? In The Free Guy, he had a cameo. What in the shit? When he grabs the...
Did you find out how I didn't see Free Guy, so people in the comment section, if anyone watched it, you'll have to tell me if it's any good.
In my opinion, it was one of the better films in 2021. I didn't watch that many films. I watched the major ones. You watched a lot of indie films.
Including Streaming 35, which we'll go into a bit later.
Yeah, you watched Boiling Point. How was that?
Boiling Point was technically 2022, so in the past month, I've seen 10.
I thought it had a 2021 release.
I think that's the one thing you have to be really careful with, especially for those in the UK like us. if you're kind of interested in like making lists and that sort of thing, which is very nerdy, but I suggest doing it because it's fun.
Yeah.
You have to kind of work out the releases from your own respective country. I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Especially because, like, I think I saw The King's Man and Licorice Pizza in 2022, and so they've therefore made my list. But I think they came out within like the last week of December.
Yeah, Kingsman came out 25th.
Something daft like that.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't like it when films release so close to the
It's
end of the
really
year.
irritating, isn't it?
When it gets mixed up because you can't discuss it properly,
Yeah.
in these sections. But I mean, we had some nice films. Like in the beginning of the year, we didn't have that much to go by. One of the first films we watched.
Because the world was on sabbatical. It was.
Yeah, I think me and you started going back to the cinema like slowly.
Yeah,
Started going back to it. I think one of the first films we watched was The Courier.
Yes,
Benedict
a
Cumberbatch.
superb movie.
It was a great film. It was a very good film. It kind of reminded me of the type of film it was. Is kind of like those old World War movies,
Yeah.
but it was kind of pushed. Not I say pushed back on the violence, but it was a bit more. How would I put
Well,
it?
it was the Cold War, so it
Yeah.
was more about the Cold War, and I'm not a history person at
Mm-hmm.
all. The gentleman at the opposite end of me is he's a great documentarian who does a lot into history, but the Cold War was more about espionage
Mm-hmm.
than violence. So I think it kind of makes sense. Like the thing regarding the Courier, it was, I mean, it was ages ago.
It was
when we watched
violent
it.
still.
It was violent, yeah, but I think it
But
was
it was like emotionally.
it was much
violent.
more about here rather than.
Yeah.
But I mean that's kind of
That's why it's called the Cold War.
yeah. But I think that's kind of a thing on war in general. Like, you can, someone can lose an arm and a leg or lose their life, but anyone that makes it out, it does a lot more here, which is why PTSD is such a thing when it comes to soldiers when they return home.
Yeah.
But yeah, in regards to The Courier, it was an incredibly interesting film. It's such an interesting
Very good film. It was a very good film.
it's such an interesting thing regarding British cinema because there's a kind of not a debate per se, but the history of British cinema over the past 130 years has gone through some really fundamental changes. So the sort of old costume dramas of the Sir Larry Olivier generation, where they kind of walk in, darling, how do you do? I'm here, I've arrived. Compared to the working class revolution in the 60s from production companies like Woodfall, who did A Taste of Honey, Saturday Night, Sunday Morning, which is a fantastic movie. I'd please recommend anyone if you've never seen it, by the great Albert Finney. Well, he was the star of it. And then we've kind of seen it dissipate a little bit, and there's been like a fine balance over the years. We have had some top-notch filmmakers. A mutual friend of ours, Chris, I took to see Michael Lee's Naked at home on First Street because they did the re-release. I think is it the 30 year anniversary, something like that.
Right.
Excuse me, but it was a really phenomenal movie. Our friend, he's from Johannesburg, and kind of I don't think it translated quite to him, but what's so wonderful about Naked is that it's a incredibly difficult watch. It goes into some very sensitive subject matter, but yeah, I really do think it was one of the great movies I've ever seen. It was something that I'd heard about for so many years. I think I had the DVD on my shelf, but to watch it in the cinema with an audience was something quite surreal. It was it's basically about a sort of sexual deviant known as Johnny, where like shit goes down in Manchester, so he treks down to London, and he just kind of spends like a couple of nights in London just like meeting so many wacky people, and that's kind of really all I can sort of say about it. But it's one of those. So Mike Lee, for those of you who don't know who he is, he's a filmmaker from Salford, and he has an incredibly interesting way of making films, which is not like the traditional of you get a script, pre-production, production, editing, go. His system is he has an idea for a film, hires all these actors, and they do roughly about 6 weeks of pure improvisation, and they
Right.
make the script together.
Okay.
And then they start filming.
So did they have like a concept where they're like, okay, I want to make a story about someone who just lost his dad in a car accident, and I want to improvise around that? Does he come up with the idea, and they just sit around and exchange ideas?
More or less, yeah. I think it's different depending on the subject matter. So he has done historical movies like Peterloo, and which is there was a massacre that happened within Manchester called the Peterloo Massacre in the 1800s, I think.
Right.
And then there was a film called Mr. Turner, which is about an artist. And so these historical things, he uses the same format, but it would be very difficult because it would have been steeped in research. But compare that to something like Naked, which was, it was kind of rumoured that him and the actor David Thewlis, who played Johnny, the birth of not only the character of Johnny, but the actual movie itself, was basically just like about 100 or so conversations over a cup of coffee.
Right.
And then it kind of worked from there. It's an incredibly, I absolutely tried to rip him off in a live film that I made about 2 years ago now,
Right.
called Brothers
This is
in
the
Arms.
one you showed me. Oh yeah, I remember.
Which it is on YouTube if anyone wishes to check it out.
We'll put the link in the description afterwards. Yeah.
Thank you. But yeah, no, that was an incredibly interesting start because we had to work with innovation. So we attempted live cinema, so we used Instagram, and I hired 2 actors. And what we did is we kind of had a general concept, myself, my producer, and my co/assistant director, and I kind of wanted to work in a Greek tragedy-esque set, very much in the modern day, because this was during the peak of the pandemic, when everyone was inside. So all of our rehearsals, all of the production, everything was all done online.
Yeah.
And it didn't hinder it to an extent, and we had a really good time because, as much as I'm involved in sort of film, I also experimented with theatre a lot. I started my interest in theatre, and then I kind of went to film. And so
yeah.
they've kind of...
You've directed a few as well.
Yeah, so I've this was all at university through a theatre company at our university. So I was there for 3 years, where I performed for them as an actor in 1 or 2 small pieces, and then there was opportunities to write and then direct. So this was part of something like a scripted show. So I brought something in. So I wrote something and then directed. It was about 16 minutes long.
Right.
And it was okay. It was a small 100-seat theatre, but I had a really nice experience. And I remember a friend of mine saying, you should really try and direct something next year, because the format is, I don't know if it's changed. I've not been back since I graduated, but the format would be there'd be approximately 5 shows a year, and you would there would be 1 major play in a musical, and then a couple of other shows and like a variety show and that sort of thing. Right. And my friend said you need to apply to direct, and so I did. I didn't get the application process where you presented them with a play that you wanted to direct. They had some reservations because it was only a cast of 6. And so then they said, we want you for the job, but just not the play, which is a bit disheartening because it was a play that it was a play by the great Australian playwright called Andrew Bavell from 2014 called Things I Know to Be True. So please check it out. It's an incredibly wonderful and very insightful play. I think it's one of the strongest plays of the 21st century.
What was it called again?
Things I Know to Be True.
Right.
And then what I ended up directing was not something that was as hard-hitting. It was a murder mystery comedy called Out of Sight, Out of Murder, written in 1983 by someone called Fred Carmichael. I enjoyed it. I don't look back at it with rose-tinted glasses. I can respect it was a struggle, but fundamentally, I kind of look back and look at not only the privilege it is to direct, and it really is a privilege to direct, but how much freedom I actually had. So in terms of things like the music, so in the theatre we have like we call it preset. So like when the audience walks in, there'd be music playing and then whatever's on the stage. So we had it that the protagonist was sat down and writing down on his desk, and then we used my old record player for the set. And the idea was that he was listening to the record, but the music was coming. But then my kind of idea was a lot of the characters were from like archetypal murder mystery characters, and then there was two other characters who were from the quote unquote modern day, but I didn't want to set it in the modern day. I kind of wanted to set it in 1983 because that's when it was written. So then I could kind of not fudge it, but then like I didn't have to use like modern phones, and it was a bit more intriguing. I didn't have to think about the more modern sense. If I set it in 1983, then there's a purpose for the set, but also for the research as well, which is what we did. And I had an amazing prop master and set designer and an amazing team. So it was set in Vermont, which is just on the outskirts between like Canada and America. I think I'm not very well with geography, but my prop master, she got like different magazines, like Reader's Digest and all that stuff that they read in America.
Right.
But she managed to source some from 1983, and that kind of level of detail was just extraordinary. And so the preset music to go back to it, so that's the music when anyone is coming in and sitting down. I said to my sound technician, I found this one piece, and it was I don't know who sang it, but it's called Sweet Dreams. You know, Sweet dreams are made of. I'm not a singer. I was many years ago, but not anymore. But it was that. But I found an orchestral version of it, and I thought that's interesting, and that's how Act 1 of the play ended. And I said to my sound technician, "Could you find me any more late 70s, early 80s that don't exceed 1983 that were orchestral?" And he found me a great list, and that was quite again to have that kind of. I don't want to use the word power, but to kind of have that freedom and be like, you know, someone like, "Yes, boss, I'll get that done." It was quite nice as well. But yeah, that was quite I found a really weird.
Yeah, that's very interesting. But because cinema in general is very different to theater.
The cinema audience is way too high maintenance. Apologies, cinema audience, because that includes myself. But it really is.
Just theater in general has a different atmosphere. Like when you go into it, it feels different. It feels less produced and more creative, if you wanted to put it that way, because it's kind of like it's got less corporate influence behind it. I feel like theater, because it's not this multi-billion-dollar industry that everything has to be perfect, everything has to be a blockbuster. It has more room. I think there's more instances.
And no.
I think there is more instances of theater pushing that creativity, pushing the boundary, as opposed to there is film. Film is more static, where it's like goes on a flat line. You have a film that changes everything. Then that becomes the new standard. You know, The Matrix, The Avatar, The Godfather in the 1970s.
This is the ASMR section of the
Bring it
podcast.
closer to the mic so they can enjoy the.
I'm trying to get the wrapper off.
Let me get myself a tangerine.
You want a tangerine?
One sec, just let me. Can I get that in? Oh, beautiful.
Oh no.
I don't know if they got that in camera, but that
Don't have any tangerines.
that's something we can discuss about today. Fuck cinema and politics. There are too many fucking oranges in the world. There is the mandarin orange, the blood orange, the orange, the tangerine. I think the nectarine is a peach.
Yeah.
But there are too many fucking oranges. We don't need them.
Tangerine is the best. Tangerine is the best.
They're all the fucking same.
No, it's
You
not.
just need a cup, or you
It
need.
tastes different. It tastes different. If you actually put it in your mouth and close your eyes, it tastes so much different. It's so much better.
Close your eyes and think of England. I'm not. But
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. When was the instance when you you watch films, right? You're entertained. You're a child. You watch cartoons. You watch films, and I can be almost 99% sure that almost everyone who's had access to the TV has something that they loved growing up in their childhood, right? What interests me is people who get into film and asking them what was it that pushed them above just enjoying this piece of art, let's say, enjoying this piece of media content. What pushed them to actually want to create them? Like, was it a certain film? Was it a certain movie? Was it a certain cartoon that made you be like, oh, that's so interesting. I actually want to make something like that. Or was it like a more like a gradual increase in the amount of interest that you had that made you realize, okay, this might be something I love to do for the rest of my life? Like, for example, what was it for you? Like, what was it? Was it a certain film that you watched?
I was incredibly interested in acting first from the age of about 10 to up until 15. I remember sitting at home in my bedroom just thinking, you know, I mean, I went through like a couple of different phases. At one point, I wanted to be a graphic designer, and then at one point, I wanted to be an RE teacher, and then I failed. I failed religious studies, which always baffles people because I'm a Catholic. But yeah, so people always say the same thing. Like, how did you fail RE? I was like, I don't know. But yeah, no, for me it was. I got to about the age of 15, and I remember I remember very distinctly sitting in my bedroom, and the guy was just writing some stuff, and I was like, kind of saying it to myself, Paddy, have you ever thought about directing? That's good. And then I was
What made you think about acting first? What, like, was it just at the age of 10 you just became interested in it out of nowhere?
I think it was when it would have been when I started high school. There was this amazing person who I don't think probably doesn't even remember me, but there was someone called Donna, and I will forever be grateful to this wonderful person because in my high school the way it worked is that your registration form class we used to have it every morning for 20 minutes,
Right.
and we were in different houses, kind of like Hogwarts, and that makes it sound like it was a Catholic school in a rather rough part of Manchester. It wasn't anything fancy, but we were assigned into different houses, and then there was about 3 or 4 something daft like that. School kids from all years from year 7 up until year 11 within this form room, and I remember they would have like every 20 minutes in the morning they would have like the PowerPoint slide of the day, like the things you need to know, and they were mentioning about the school musical is coming up, and I think by that point I may have had 1 or 2 drama lessons that I enjoyed, but I remember thinking to myself like, I don't know, and Donna just turned around and said, and we both ended up taking part in this particular musical, and then I took part in every musical up until my final year, and that's where it really solidified my interest in performance and theatre and film and all that jazz. And jazz. But I remember Donald just turning around to me and being like, no, you should come. I was like, okay.
So it was just by, we were like, okay, let's just give it a try.
Let's just try it.
Enjoyed it.
And yeah, I really did. I remember there was, I very distinctly remember being kind of stood there in the midst of all the other people, and they were like, singing us a song from the musical was Joseph and His Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And I played the part of Benjamin Calypso, which was very fun. And I just remember being sort of like at the back of this congregation of people, and the music teacher kind of looking at me because it was, I think they were asking people to like speak up who just wanted to like do a couple of one-liners of the song, and then she looked at me. I was like, no. But I remember going, and it was fucking hilarious because I remember back then in my first year, what you did was rather than I don't think I've spoken for this in about 10 years. But what you would do is, rather than giving you a song from the show, you had to bring a song with you. And so this was 2000.
Bring a song with you.
So to the audition.
Okay.
To sing. And
like you make your own song, or is it just
no, just like any song.
Any song you wanted to pick.
Excuse me. Yeah. And so this was 2000 and. This is so embarrassing. This is about 2011.
Right.
And so there was a very popular song around about that time. And so I went into my audition, this rather fat with a very bad haircut, young Italian kid came in, and
I've seen that photo, yeah. I was like, Paddy, you're fat as fuck, bro. You were fat as fuck.
I really was. It was
thank
terrible.
Thank God. I was fat too. You should have seen my pictures, bro. I was like,
get them up.
I looked like a lobster. Looked like a fat lobster. I had a thick neck.
Yeah.
I still have the boobs, but okay, let's get past that.
But yeah, so coming to the audition room, and I go, I had like my bag on and my jacket, and I threw my bag down and said, my name's Paddy, and I'm going to be singing CeeLo Green's "Forget You," and that's what I sang.
Did they enjoy it?
They
What happened?
fucking loved it.
Oh, that's good. That's great. You got a video of that?
I think, in fact, we may.
Think
In
it might
fact,
be on
yeah. If you
YouTube?
type in, yeah. Oh, fantastic! Here we are.
Let me go to YouTube for you.
Yeah, perfect.
Right.
All right. Right. So the fourth one down. That one. Oh, Jesus Christ! This is. That's very loud. I want to see if you can point me out.
What the shit? I don't want to laugh, but the way she started singing, I was like, that sounds like Katy Perry when she started off her career.
Yeah.
Oh my god. What is this guy doing? What's she holding him?
So he's the. We didn't
What's
have
the story here? Because she's pushing him.
She's escorting him. So the three ladies here are playing the narrator, which is traditionally one role.
Right.
And he is the father of the 12. But if you count properly, it's 13. But we won't go into that.
12.
The father of the 12 of his 12 children.
Okay,
to
there's
which
so many
Joseph was
plot
one.
holes. First of all, the skin color difference. They didn't think of that. They should
We were doing diversity before it was cool,
yeah, diversity. Even
and I'm gonna get cancelled for saying
even,
that.
even the rainbows, the colors, they thought of everything, but not the plot hole.
The plot. Well, to be fair, if you want to pause it, he had a lot of different wives. They weren't all the same. So
Oh, he had it. Love.
yeah, he had several different wives. So
Oh, wow. Oh, so he's the villain or he's the hero?
no, he's just a dad.
So
He is. Anyone who knows the musical knows the story, and it's a very charming musical by
Yeah, I bet.
Andrew Lloyd Webber.
bet. I'll play the dad in a film adaptation.
Why not? Yeah, so let's see if we can find where I'm coming up in a second.
So you're one of the children?
I'm one of the children. I was the youngest child. Have you not found me yet? Wait.
I can see. Is that you behind him?
Right, so move to,
Or are you the blue one? Are you that one?
I'm that fat little child right there.
Is it that one with the
Yep,
bounce?
that's me. There was
Oh my
jokes
God.
behind stage that I needed a training bra, but I think we're coming up next. 1 second. Yeah, that's. This is so surreal for me.
Something about this musical reminds me of Shrek when he's sad.
Why not?
Why are they showing? Bro, they needed some professional people to film this. Like he's not. They should have the camera on the girl who's singing right now. Now showing him, and he's like,
I think it was one of the families that just filmed it, and
you could have just asked a film student. They could have just asked the film student.
I did feel weird typing that in, but I thought it's on YouTube for everyone to see. Like,
because the kid's like, "Why are you filming me, bro? Please tilt it
yeah.
slightly."
I mean, to be fair, it was a high school performance. There was very little budgets. They were very economical with the costume and everything.
Did
But
they give you the t-shirts for free, or did you have to buy?
I
them?
think I've still got that T-shirt somewhere. Would it fit me? Would it balls?
Probably, because you slimmed down, bro. You slimmed down.
But yes, but I've also grown taller. I haven't.
yeah.
That's probably bullshit.
But see how large that t-shirt that probably fits me too.
Yeah, but look how large those titties were. Yeah, all the money went on the coat.
Could could have bought it on eBay. What? Yeah, there was eBay back then. This isn't copyrighted, is it? Okay. Let's just hope not.
Well, I know that when you anytime you put on a performance of speaking of anything, you have to.
I want to see you sing.
Oh, I don't sing. If you want, I can find another one. If you want to actually hear me sing, it was a different musical about 2 years later. You know, Hairspray.
That's you, right?
That's
Just
me. Yeah.
give him a hug.
Oh God, that's so embarrassing.
You look so different.
Well, I mean, it was about 10 years ago. That's absolutely not PC whatsoever, you hairy bunch of Israelites. Jesus Christ. it was 10 years ago.
What's this? What's this? Someone pushed him. Someone pushed him. What the hell?
Oh yeah, they're selling their brother to be a
He
slave.
almost knocked the little girl up. Nice. I know it's interesting.
And I don't speak Egyptian very well. Yeah.
It's very interesting to find out how people found out what they wanted to do.
I
Or
can
fun.
find a video of me singing if you
Yeah,
want.
go for
Yeah?
it. Go
Fuck
for
it,
it.
let's do it.
But
This feels like a therapy session.
because some people, for example, they watch. Because if you go back in the days, like Middle Ages, hundreds of years ago,
Yes.
people used to do what their family used to do. They used to follow the family tradition, right? Dad used to be a blacksmith. You're going to be a blacksmith, Dad used to be a musician. You're going to be a musician. But now I think like film
Yeah.
is kind of replaced that role for a lot of people where they like used to just follow whatever the family business they had. They watch a film, like someone watches Top Gun, for example, and it's different for everyone. Like you can watch, like you can show Top Gun to 10 different people, right?
Yeah.
And one of them be like, all of them would fall in love with the film. One of them
Yeah.
is like, oh, I want to become a pilot. The other one is like,
I want to be Tom Cruise.
I want to be a stuntman like Tom Cruise. One of them is like, I want to be an actor. The other one is like, I want to play volleyball. The other one is like, I want to fight for my country. I want to join the army. Because it's not one thing that a film gives you. It's like if you find a film that you absolutely love, it gives you different. Because people look at it differently, even though it's a single vision from the director's mind. People take away different things. People fall in love with different aspects of the film.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
And that's what kind of makes people nowadays gravitate towards choosing a career a lot. Like a lot of people watch a TV show, Breaking Bad, and like, I want to sell drugs. Don't do that, kids. And
Well, yeah,
some
no.
people watch, the Suits and Mad Men. They're like, I want to become a lawyer. I want to work in advertisement. They kind of go into that, and I feel like it's very important.
Well, yeah,
No.
there was a video that went around on a comedy show about a girl that read the Harry Potter books before the controversy. Read the books and was just inspired by the character of Hermione, and then went on to do really hard in school, and got a little bit of shit because
Right.
kids are little bastards, aren't they? Calling her a nerd and that sort of thing, and then she.
I mean, they identified with the bullies in the Harry Potter, so they had to play a role. We all have our roles,
Potter.
Mr. Potter.
But yeah, no, she studied really hard and then went on to graduate from Cambridge because the character of Hermione inspired her, which is
What should you do after?
I've no idea. The video ended, but
Went to Harvard 5 years later. She's homeless, hasn't got a job. Broke as fuck. I'm just saying, it's a possibility, It's a possibility.
yeah, I always love that conversation though when you find out like, oh, Bill Gates dropped out of Harvard or Mark Zuckerberg. It's like, yes, but they also went on to do shit. If you're just going to drop out of college,
Yeah,
like you have to have a plan.
people say some people they get affected by some stupid ideas, you know, just listen to something or they're impressed by someone. They're like, oh, I want to do what he does. I'm just gonna quit my job. I'm just gonna quit this, and they haven't got a fucking clue they're doing.
I think it's like just at the back before continuing. Like I think it's incredibly important. So anyone that listens that's maybe starting college, university, even if you're kind of unsure, like I don't know, there are a lot of different routes, but certainly for my own family as well, I was the first one on my mum's side to go to university, and so for my family as well, but also for the experience, education is an incredibly important thing, and it never stops either.
Yeah.
Especially for film students, I want to make it very clear that never think that the work is done. Like once you finish, like oh yeah, I know it. Like please.
No,
don't
it
get-
only starts.
There used to be
It only starts.
you'll get a lot of a lot of students because we heard these stories and they're so true. And I guess I had that mindset a little bit, but not to have the confidence to actually stand in front of a class and say it. Apparently, I heard a rumor once that from a degree that I eventually went on to when I left you in first year. Apparently, a kid stood up in the front of the classroom and said, "I am an author." That kid is going to be thrown around in jail like a dog toy. What an absolute stupid person. The auteur theory, whilst flawed, and a lot of people disagree with it. For those who don't know, the auteur theory was, I think it was coined by a French magazine decades ago, but it's basically filmmakers, predominantly directors, who have a unique style that is synonymous with them. So, like, it's argued Wes Anderson is an author and that sort of thing.
Yeah, David Fincher, Wes
Yeah.
Anderson.
But the kind of auteur really kicked off in New Hollywood in the 70s when the fall of the studios happened, and then there was a rise for a good decade, which was the 70s, when filmmakers like Scorsese, De Palma, Coppola, even George Lucas, these great filmmakers were telling very new stories and somewhat alternative stories, which became the norm. It was a fantastic decade that we really romanticize. But a lot of them now are considered auteurs, but they weren't walking around saying, "I'm an auteur, darling." They had something to say, and I think that's incredibly important when you are interested. And it's not necessarily just film; it could be fucking cooking, if you wish.
Yeah, anything.
Quite literally anything, but predominantly in the creative industry, you have to have something to say. And if you don't, then what the fuck are you doing? It's a business, but it's a business founded on creatives.
Yeah.
But then again, if you really think about it, like the whole, there's kind of a thing like art versus business, but you have to be a creative in the world of business as well. That's incredibly important. I always used to say, especially when it comes to cinema, you have the whole of human history up until yesterday.
Yeah.
You have no idea what the movies of tomorrow are going to be popular. Citizen Kane didn't win Best Picture, so what the fuck do they know? I mean, I don't particularly.
Yeah.
Oh, this is off the record, but I'm not the biggest fan of Citizen Kane, and I'm going
Yeah,
to
30s and 40s.
I'm going to movie hell for that. But oh well.
Like when it comes to old films, like the first real films that came out, I'm more of a fan of like the Eastern media. You know, the Seven Samurai, Akira Kurosawa films.
Okay.
But when it comes to Western media, I'm more of a fan of 70s, 80s, Martin
Yeah.
Scorsese, Godfather. Those sort of movies. And nowadays, it's kind of, again, in my opinion, going back to Eastern media, where it's kind of like flourishing and advancing
Yeah.
things, because again, like you said, people who get into this creative line of work is either you either have something to say or you're best at what you do, best at entertaining people. So, and you don't always get the chance to do it. Like 99% of people who get into a creative industry, they don't make any money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's an 87% unemployment rate in the UK for actors, but that shouldn't scare anyone off. I think what's most important is you have to think to yourself: do I want to work? Do I have something to say, or do I want to be famous?
And you have to understand the risks that come with choosing a path.
Yeah,
like
if
this.
you want to be famous, become an Instagram influencer, and that's kind of it, really. Have your 15 minutes of fame. That's not to
'Cause-
there are incredibly hardworking people in the social media industry, and that kind of brand image
Yeah.
is a job, and I'm not here to diminish that whatsoever. But if you're interested in wanting to become famous, stay the fuck away from the film industry, please, because there are a lot of hardworking people who want to do who want to work hard and want to tell stories and don't get anywhere because it is so hard. It's kind of one of those. It's one of those things where like a lot of the time we kind of talk about like the type of movies that we're seeing and that sort of thing. Like so the award season is coming up around the corner, and there's a lot of stigma, right? Especially say like the Golden Globes, for example. But this has been mentioned before by very prolific filmmakers. That the issues regarding say like the award shows again are really just like another end of the business. Like one golden statue known as the Oscar actually is only $400 to make. Like one statue, it's $400 to
Especially
make.
nowadays, it doesn't mean anything because they give it to whatever has the best political messaging and not the most creative and not the best produced piece of medium. At least the past couple of years. At
think
least to me,
Yeah,
when it comes to awards.
but I think that's kind of what I was trying to not particularly say, but what's most important is that I think they put a lot of effort into the issues around award shows, but not the issues surrounding it itself, which is the movies. Because by the time it gets to the award shows, I think it was Spike Lee that said this a couple of years back, by the time it gets to the award shows, it's already too late. What needs to happen is that then it needs to happen in the presentation room when they're presenting these potential new films. They need to open the doors to more films, because that's where the real issue is. You want to see more different styles of film, and I think that's another thing as well. They're predominantly talking about Hollywood when they reference that. Hollywood is the number 3 distributor for films. Number 2 is Nigeria, and Nigeria and Nollywood, and number 1 is Bollywood. They produce the most films, and they're made for a specific type of person. That's not to say that someone outside of that demographic cannot enjoy those movies.
Yeah.
But I think it's just because of how big Hollywood is and the conglomerate that it is. That's the real issue, and they kind of see it as like the main the main number one in terms of the
global appeal.
Yeah,
the global appeal.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to talk about this as well, because I feel like the success of Hollywood in general was because the West is based around capitalism. The systems that drive it, that make people successful, that make people want to go out and make these crazy things happen, like these crazy companies that are in existence today, these crazy films that we're seeing, Spider-Man No Way Home, is kind of like the result of that mentality and mindset and system that allowed people to. George Lucas making his own Star Wars, direct his own movies, have his own company. I feel like when it's like that, Hollywood was at its best, and I feel like it's regressing a bit. It's becoming more like other countries like China, or Russia, or even Iran, where that TV and cinema medium is so influenced with political messaging and government influence that it becomes corrupt, it becomes impure. And I feel like art and film should be one of those things that we can't treat as something to deliver a message, something to push an agenda. It's ironic because it's what it was used to. We talked about religious scriptures and how stories in those religious contexts were used to deliver those messages from generation to generation. But I feel like it has a different meaning now in this time. It's 21st century. And if you were to make a piece of content, if you were to make a film, and if you were to make it political, you can't brand it as something to be enjoyed by everyone. You have to brand it as what it is, like a documentary, because we know what a documentary is. It's based on
Yeah.
facts most of the time, unless if it's a mockumentary.
Yeah.
So that one, you have a right to make a documentary, brand it a political one. You have a right to make even a film and make it a political film. But to make, a blockbuster and show off political messaging, because it's pushed by corporates and their agenda is just to make money. It's impure. You understand what I'm saying? It's not genuine, and it ruins the medium as a whole, because it takes away from that entertainment aspect. It takes focus away from trying to make it a good story and a device of delivering message first. And I think it's the wrong way to look at it.
I think this is my particular issue, if you want to call it that, is more of a case of when a particular film comes out now, before even someone's watched it, they will tear it down, and I'm just I'm a bit confused as to why. I think when it's done well, so if you look at the example of, say, like West Side Story, a remake, the new Steven Spielberg one, I thoroughly quite enjoyed it. It's in my list for the year. I think it's like it's in the top 15. I know that much, and I particularly didn't like the original. I get about 10 minutes in and I just couldn't watch it. But I thought, if I'm in a cinema, I can't turn it off, and I refuse to leave the cinema anyway, so I'm stuck watching it, and I thoroughly enjoy. I got the first 10 minutes is just a bit of a bore fest for me, to be honest. But I think that's just with the musical itself rather than the filmmaking. But there were some somewhat controversial opinions now in a modern sense capacity regarding the original, which is still beloved. It won like 10 Academy Awards because you had a white American actress called Natalie Wood playing Latina. And people still admire that movie, but they can be like, yeah. And so this new one has actually done rather well, and they had more authentic actors, but they chose the right actors. They were great, and they did change it a little bit. There was one character, so there was I think her name's Rita Molina or something like that. If I've got that wrong, I apologize. But she played a character in the original one, won an Academy Award, and then in the new one she played a different character who was originally a male in the other movie. But the change didn't sort of affect the movie whatsoever, and was quite nice and satisfying. And excuse me, I don't think it kind of diminishes the original one, but it kind of brings it into context. Okay, now but that's because you had someone like Steven Spielberg at the helm of it. But I think
there's nothing wrong with that, as long as it's done well and it's not done for the wrong reasons. If the only reason you change character's gender or color, or you add certain things just because of political messaging, that could potentially ruin it, And I don't see anything wrong with it. Like, let's say in Dune, we watched Dune because I read the books. This character, the leader of Fremen, who was a doctor who kind of like led them into the sands. Remember when they first saw the worm in the film?
Vaguely, yeah.
Yeah. So, in the books he was a male. In the movie he was a female. I didn't see anything wrong with that character change, because it didn't change the narrative. Didn't change
I know
the
who
story.
you mean. Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? I forgot what the character's name was, but nowadays you can't release a movie with like, let's say me and you make a film, right? And it's just two white guys. Let's say this movie blows up. You can't browse the internet without seeing an article. Oh, this show lacks diversity. This show is ignorant. This show doesn't have any female characters. This show doesn't have any. It's like a checklist for people, for corporations,
Well-
it's like something they kind of like, it's like a lens that they put on, and they look at all the films. Okay, this is a checklist that you have to go through. It's like maths to them, mathematics.
Yeah,
It's not they don't look at it as
I think
a
that
film.
yeah, I think that's an incredibly interesting point to make, and something that should be should be discussed properly. Is that I do think sometimes, but I think then you get amazing filmmakers like Jordan Peele, who made Get Out, which I thought was a wonderful. I didn't see it when it came out. I saw it a couple of years later, but I thought it was a wonderful movie. But there was so it was a white woman interviewing Daniel Kaluuya, who was nominated for Best Actor in the at the Academy Awards for Get Out,
Right.
and she said, "Oh yeah, it's a great movie. It ticks a lot of boxes." And then his response was, "We are not boxes," because for them, Jordan Peele was not sitting down and thinking, "Okay, I need to do." He was incredibly interested in, because he's very interested in genre, specifically the horror genre, and then he thought, like, I kind of want to make a horror that discusses these topics, but it's still a horror, and there's a lot of different layers to it, and it worked so effectively. And I think that's I think I had another point, but I think that's incredibly important as well, as you were kind of saying regarding, like, to people are not boxes, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, and it's not people. I think the majority of audiences have enough common sense to see the facade of caring about the political agendas being pushed in films, and a lot of people are actually against it. It's the corporations, the media, even the school system. I find it strangely that it's not. They're not treating it like what it is. They're treating it more like, okay, even in the writing class, they're like, oh, you want to make it diverse? Yeah, that kind of adds to the value of your script. You want to make it that you have this character, you have a strong female character. You have
For you meant like in high school?
yeah,
right?
yeah, like in high school, like in college, they're kind of like pushing that agenda too, and they're not teaching you how to write first. They're just focusing on these small, minute details that could actually doesn't have any effect on the quality of your work, your learning, and people see through it. And the majority of the audiences
Well, yeah,
very little effect on it.
I've kind of mentioned this before, because when I took script writing at university, they did kind of say you need to follow the BFI guidelines, which means it needs to be about a minority. And you kind of had these people like, oh, you need to do this research and all this stuff. And I was like, but why can't you have a character called Steve who goes off to a magical world, and when the movie gets cast, Steve is black or Asian? Or why do you have to do all this if it serves no purpose to the story?
Mm-hmm.
Just as a, like, that's not for me to shoot anyone down. I'm just curious, because you could be doing more damage than good if you're trying to, you say you're doing all this quote unquote research, but what if they're just a guy?
Yeah.
Like, the fact of this, because what's most important as well is that you're looking at one segment of this character, and then you're making them almost archetypal for an entire group of people.
Yeah.
Do you not see a problem with that?
Actually making it worse, because you have exactly like you said, you're making an archetypal, you're making a stereotype for a certain minority. You're like, okay, we need a black character, we just need one, we need him to act like this, we need him to say these words, we need to act that way. And it kind of, to me, that's offensive even to those groups of minorities they're still trying to represent,
Well, I think that's the thing as well, kind of going back to theatre. I'm not saying that there are certainly issues within the theatre as there are much in film, but here's an example for you, audience. So I still, so to all my theatre brothers and sisters, I apologise that I've still not seen Hamilton, but Hamilton is like launched into the stratosphere, and helmed by Lin-Manuel Miranda, a Latino American, and you've had theatre actors. So when it came over here in Britain, and even in like America and all over the world, you've had black theatre actors play George Washington. Just for those who don't know, George Washington was white. No one gave a shit, because it was an incredibly well-made musical. Now flip that to I didn't watch this TV series, but I remember reading about it. There was a TV show called Anne Boleyn about one of the wives of Henry VIII, and the actress that played her in this TV series was a black female actress. People were very annoyed, and so I think it's incredibly interesting. Again, when I say that the cinema audience or like the screen audience are incredibly high maintenance, so within the I don't know when it's coming out, but in the next couple of years, we're going to be having a remake of The Little Mermaid, and they've hired a black actress to play Ariel, and a lot of people are like, "Now I'm not being racist, but how do I explain this to my kids? What? Well, in the cartoon, she's white, yeah, and in the movie, how do you explain? When I was a child, I was explained that there was a magic man in the sky that grants wishes." Like, if I'm a good person and I'm not gay, I will. But that's.
I mean, there's two types of people. There are type of people that are like, oh, wow.
Well then,
Okay, time out. That could have gone much worse, you know.
it could have gone a lot worse.
Yes.
But you see where I'm coming from. I
Yeah.
just think that.
I mean, there's two types of people. There's a type that like, oh, why are you making it black? Oh, don't make it. It has to be white. There's the other people are like, there's no point in changing the ethnicity. If you want to make it like a Little Mermaid, make it a different character, make it black. And I see both perspectives.
Well, I think for me, especially with the thing regarding Little Mermaid, it's not fucking real. Calm down, relax your titties. It's fine.
I mean, nothing. If you think about it, in the world of movies,
It's about a woman who is half a fish, and you're complaining that she's being played by. Fuck off. Calm down.
Listen. I understand where they coming from. I understand that there's a group of people who are actually just racist and they don't want to see a black character being represented by like a black cast. And there's a group of people that are like, it's just the way the character was, the way just the character written. I understand if you want to make it a black character, just make it a new one. I don't see any reason. I see both perspectives.
But I think that's the biggest flaw. People are saying it's a black. No, it is a character who is a magical she's a magical character who in this adaptation happens to be black. I think that's most important as well when you're looking at characters, and kind of reverting back.
But can't you say that about any character, any movie character?
Well, yeah, you don't say a straight character or a white character because, well, do you know what I mean?
Like let's say Superman. Superman is like a alien, right, from another planet. Like, let's say they casted Michael B. Jordan tomorrow as Superman. There's going to be people who are against it.
Of course they would,
right?
But at the same time, you look at, say, the character of Nick Fury, who in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is being played by, Samuel L. Jackson. He has even said in interviews that when it first came out, he was a white character. And then I think years later in the comic book series, they requested, could they change the character to look like Samuel L. Jackson? And he was like, "Yeah, fuck it, sure, motherfucker." But so when the films came out, they wanted to hire him. Like, you can kind of do whatever the fuck you want, to be quite honest, as long as
I don't see any problem. I don't think any person has a problem with that, because there are.
But why though? He was a white character originally.
There are Superman, Kal-El, Clark Kent, has ever since the original been like a white character, right? And then you have alternate versions of Superman, which is like a totally different character, which is black, which is Indian, like his name, let's say, is Elfal or something,
Yeah.
He's a totally different character. He's still Superman in a different Earth on the multiverse, DC multiverse, and he's black.
These fucking multiverses, honestly.
If they make they make that, because that was originally, I agree with that. They make that character, they make a movie about him. But to change Clark Kent and make him, that doesn't make sense. You understand what I'm saying? Because you have, if you want representation, if that's your goal for your film, you already have source material for a character that represents your ideas and what you want to achieve by that film. There's no reason to change that character, change Clark Kent, when you have Ben Kent from Earth 304. You know what I mean? 304. I don't know why I said Earth 304. Earth 3. You know what 304 is, right? 304. And 304 refers to thought. activities. Yeah.
What? Pardon?
THOT.
All right.
Activities. Yeah, that's what it represents. 3 or 4.
We're getting to the R-rated
script.
section of the interview.
Yes.
Well,
But so I understand people's dissatisfaction. Oh my god. I understand people's satisfaction if they come tomorrow and they turned Clark Kent an Indian guy, a Middle Eastern guy.
yes, but there's
But
also been Bollywood adaptations of Spider-Man. Do you really think that there are Indian people complaining?
Yeah, but that's for a different audience. You understand what I'm saying? That they're changing that character for people who probably only watch Indian films. You know what I'm saying? Or they trying to. It's different. It's different than changing.
It is different to
core
an
character.
extent, but it's also kind of like you say that you're changing the guy. Yes, but also other like you. There's so much sort of almost consequence for changing one significant part of the character, but the reality is that the pigmentation of a particular individual's skin or what's between their legs really has very little to do with the delivery of a performance.
Yeah. I know.
And I think that's where people are kind of thought like there was an issue. It was about 2 years ago now. This is to do with commercials rather than cinema. But it blows my mind how fucking stupid some people are. There was Sainsbury's released I think it was about 4 maybe, or it might have been a couple of Christmas themed commercials.
Right.
For Christmas, obviously. And there was one of them, and it was very cute. It wasn't like anything amazing, or it was just a commercial, right? And it was about a family who had created this thing called the Gravy Song, like daft but silly, kind of fun. We might be able to get it up if you want to type in. Yeah, I'll type it in. So it's. Oh. Yeah. YouTube. Thank you for the comment. So. Sainsbury's Christmas advert.
Wait, my bad.
Oh shit. Oh, please do not. This is that's a documentary I made many moons ago. Christmas advert. Gravy, right? Okay. Yeah, I think it's the first one.
Hey, it's me.
Oh, hey, yo.
How are you? How's mum?
Yeah, yo. Well, what's fine? We're all good, pretty good.
I'm getting so excited for Christmas.
I just really hope I can see you.
Me too. I cannot stop thinking about mum's roasties.
Whoa. What about my baby?
What about your gravy?
Hey, you. What's going down?
They're not the song.
Gravy boat, coming in town. It's not the ocean. Just take a sip. It's so scrummy and so sleepy.
How does mum got up with you? Your gravy is pretty good to be fair, and I just really want to be home for it.
So my baby is the best.
Dad.
Honey, because my baby is the best. Honey.
That's a good ad.
It's a very good ad, isn't it? Now, would you like to know?
Comments are turned off.
Yeah, would you like to know why? So it was predominantly on Twitter, and you might be able to find an article about this.
Right.
Twitter blew up, and would you like to know why?
Why?
Because a bunch of fucking idiots were turning around and saying, "I am never going to Sainsbury again." Why the hell is this? There you go. So there was some ridiculously racist comments on Twitter predominantly because it was a black family in the advert.
Right.
At no point was there some, as you say, like political message. It was
No.
about
That
it was about gravy. I think if you're offended because you prefer mayonnaise instead of gravy, then fair enough. But
No.
that
I
that
think
really
it was a good ad. I think it was a good
that
ad.
really riled me up, and most importantly as well because like it was just an advertisement. That's it. It was an
Yeah.
advert, and honestly, the abuse that it got was just unbelievably
Yeah.
stupid. And I think that's incredibly important as well. You need to look at everything from all
Both
different
angles,
sides
both angles.
because
yeah, we mentioned people who just want to push their political messaging and just turn every character. You want to make every character minor. They want to change everything. Change the gender of Superman, change the gender of Batman. But this one, there's nothing wrong with it. And if you just don't like it because it features a black family,
You're a
that's
fucking disgrace.
that's just fucking stupid.
So yeah, if anyone, if
wanna
you were one of those people who came to Twitter and was like, "I'm never going to Sainsbury's again. It does not represent me because it's a black."
Type in Twitter.
Oh, sure.
I want to see what people actually said about it.
Yeah, that's a good important as well. I think
Yeah, come on.
this is important as well. If you're ever having a debate with someone or conversation, this is where a lot of people fall. Have the evidence to back it up, or else you are going to fall on your backside. Do your research, please, when you're having a debate or an argument with someone.
Okay, let me just see the first one. Do they have any? Yeah, I mean, they just
I think there are some. There were some quotes from there.
type in comments afterwards. Oh yeah, it's here. Don't worry
Alright,
about
go
it.
on.
Did they delete them? Alright. Okay, then
So yeah, I've had my little rant about how stupid people are. But yeah, I was very, when I found out, I was just absolutely outraged. I was just like, how can you, I just I couldn't understand it.
yeah.
But you
Yeah,
should
I mean,
never,
there's
you
some-
should never argue with an idiot.
There's something if they change Batman into a black Indian or black Indian. They change Batman into, let's say, a Hawaiian female who's 5'7". There's a difference then just
I'd say
making a
that.
new
Why
one.
not?
Huh?
I'd say that. Why not? But yeah, no, like it's
Yeah, we have a pig as a Spider-Man, but
Spider
it has
pig?
to be an alternate version. Spider pig.
But yeah, no, like I think, but I think that's most important as well.
I
When
didn't see anything wrong with this.
when people go around, oh, like certain things don't like. There are generally people like that. Oh, racism doesn't exist, or like they think that after the civil rights movement everything was gravy. It really fucking wasn't.
I mean, it's not to the point where it affects your daily life, other than, nuisance commenters and fucking people who just comment on it online. But if they get the chance to, if there are racist people around, if they get the chance to, they're gonna act out.
Yeah, because
their
they're fucking
ideas.
idiots.
Yeah.
But I think that's Akala said this on an interview. Akala, for those who don't know, is a hip hop artist. He's an amazing political speaker. And that's what I was saying as well. He's a very intelligent person, and I worship him. And what's so wonderful about him is that he's prepared to sit down with people who are completely on the other spectrum of him, and they don't raise each other's voices. They have a civil discussion about real world issues, whether it be in our own country or other countries.
If the person of color or black and just giving the limelight to those who are feeling victims
Oh,
of
Sainsbury.
racism, etc. So I get that. I 100% get that. In terms of like,
Who the fuck needs to review an advert? But yeah, that's my rant about how stupid some people are. Do we have any other?
Nah. Don't want to talk about ads, but it's I don't know, films in general.
That's a good point. Films, cinema. Should we discuss?
Do you like writing, right? I find that writing different genres.
I
feels
struggle
even
tremendously with genre.
Yeah, because when I write sci-fi, I find sci-fi the easiest because it's pure fiction for me. I don't need to do any research.
Yes, but I'm not a scientist, so
I wrote for example, I wrote a short story just last night in my drawer. It took me like 2-3 hours.
How much you want to bet that it starts with someone having sex?
Okay, you're gonna lose that bet, but I wrote it in 2-3 hours. I made
Yeah.
another story which is kind of like sci-fi fantasy-esque. I wrote it in like a week. whenever I want to do research for a documentary or something that's set in past, then because it's already existed, you have to take an element of realism into it. You have to do the research, and that takes a lot of time, and it kind of like kills the mood. Because if I have to write a show, if I have to write a short film set in 1900, then I'm gonna have to go on the internet and be like, okay, 1900s, what was going on? What was it like? What was people doing? If I want to make a documentary, I have to do the same thing. It's different, There's a lot of research that goes into it. So I find pure fiction the easiest to write. It just comes off your mind onto the paper. It's just how fast can you write? If you can write fast, just gonna write it. Because I find myself to be slow. I just want to write it before I forget something. Just write.
Yeah,
And my handwriting is shit.
Yeah.
But I find sci-fi shows that are generally set in future easiest. You can make up your own rules. Same as fantasy.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm predominantly a script writer. That's where my interest lies. A little bit with short story as well, but predominantly more with script writing. However, I found a style of writing, a medium of writing, which is just incredibly freeing for me. And before you turn it off, just hear me out. And that's poetry. I came from a working class European family of Irish people and Italian people. Like, poetry was not really a thing for us. It was not something that felt. And there was someone who was a part of my life well over a year ago who was incredibly interested in poetry, and I just didn't really understand it. And then yeah, like I kind of had some sort of unresolved personal feelings, and I was rather intoxicated one night with a friend of mine. I was like, I'm gonna write some shit down, and I wrote this down in the form of a poem, and I sent it to a dear friend of mine who is an amazing poet in his own right. It's we both have Instagram accounts. One is called Poetic Nonsense. He is an amazing poet who told me everything I know, and if you're interested in mine, it's Poetry by Paddy. That's an Instagram account. And I think what's interesting to me is that it kind of, you talk about like, oh, how did I find acting and then directing, but the thing of poetry was the one that was most interesting because I had no intent. I wasn't looking for it. Mm-hmm. It kind of, without sounding like a sort of philosophical knobhead, it came to me. Right. I had, as I said, I had some unresolved sort of feelings. And I just thought to myself, I need to write some stuff down.
Yeah, and right. Because people have different ways of dealing with the hardships, emotions, whatever. Like some people like to go gym, work out, lift weights, martial arts. Some people like to write.
He says
some
that
like to
as
watch.
He's just showing his muscles to the camera.
What muscles, bro?
He was scratching his head, and then he's some people go to the gym, just start fucking ripping his shirt off.
I was scratching my bald spot because I was trying to cover it.
It's not. But if anyone just lean your head down to the.
No, I'm not.
It's a beautiful bald spot. I don't know what he's talking about.
It's the sexiest bald spot anyone's gonna ever see. But yeah, I mean, people, they do different things. Some people go to the gym. Some people. I mean, I started to run a couple months ago, right, and lift weights and make muscle. So
he was running away from all the screaming girls.
I'm getting skinnier.
Asha!
Haven't you ever written a poetry to a girl? You have.
Fuck you.
You have.
Right.
I mean, you don't have to answer.
Yes and no. I have.
I'll take that as a yes.
Not. Oh God, you bastard.
Okay. Here's a word of advice for you guys. If you're interested in a girl, do not write her a poetry. If she's in love with you, she's gonna fucking hate you.
I remember there was someone that I was dating for a very short period of time, and I remember there was a particular poem that I wrote when we were kind of in the speaking stage. It was a couple of weeks if that, but there was this thing that I wrote. It wasn't I sent it to her because she was an actor and was interested in reading, and so it kind of not necessarily, it wasn't inherently about her, but these kind of feelings that I had at the time. I won't tell you which poem it was, but it is on my Instagram account. But I do write a lot of romantic poetry, just because of my own sort of personal and philosophical beliefs regarding more modern day romance. I think social media has been one of the biggest victims to relationships possibly going.
Right. True.
Yeah, to anyone kind of out there, I am single. No, but my
ladies, if you want his business card, hit me up.
but my kind of not argument, but my worry for a lot of people, and specifically a lot of young couples as well, our age and even up to the age of 30, is that your entire relationship is bombarded through social media. Now, those who know you know that you're in a relationship and know that you're happy, and if you're struggling, you'll talk to people. And then the only other people are the single people who you're just making feel shit. But most importantly, I think what's important is that it has become a very important part of a relationship that you have to post your significant other all over your social media. And if you're not, oh my god, you're cheating on you clicked on this other person's picture and they look really sexy, so I hate you. It's like, shut the fuck up. There's a lot of lack of trust that has come through social media. I really hate discussing
I would say a lack of responsibility and respect for the other people too.
Absolutely, and you don't need to show. When did relationships become anything more? And this is with the exception of polyamory relationships, because that's a conversation for another day.
We're kind of going into a side road with our conversation. But yeah, I mean, relationships are kind of like Facebook dating. I just discovered, because it gave me a notification. We're like, oh, your friends wouldn't find out if you activated Facebook dating. It's just you and girls who aren't your friends.
Although what it does, and I'm not saying that I've used it, but what I am telling you is that if someone comes up on your phone, it tells you who your mutual friends are. Which is hilarious.
That's kind of good because Facebook's got the biggest catalog of people, billions of users. So if there's a mutual friend, it would be easier if I have Patrick introduce me. Instead of we're like, hey, how you doing? You want to go out?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly funny. Well, one, it tells you that it's definitely not a fake account.
Because majority of relationships start from, mutual friends. You know someone who knows someone, then meets her, So that's a lot of relationships, that's how they start.
That's very true.
Because to be 98% of people, that's how they meet, There's only a few. That and work, their workplace.
Yeah, the first girl I ever took out on a date, I met drunk at a party, and we were both. Well, no, it's.
I know your stories, bro. They're safe with me.
We're not going to be discussing them today.
Yes.
No, but we. I'll never forget it. I was dancing on my own because I was a wee bit drunk, and they were playing a particular song, and then this girl that I knew said, "Come dance with us," and so I danced with the two of them, and then the person that I knew left, and I was kind of stuck with this girl. We did this very awkward dance, and then we kind of dispersed, and I'll tell you what the song was because it was kind of cute. But the girl whose birthday party it was, I then saw her in college about a week later, and I was like, she was like, "Oh yeah, she mentioned you," and I was like, "Oh, can you help me out?" And so we got talking and we went on a date. And I've not spoken to this person in a couple of years, but they're a very they're a very sweet person. It just kind of didn't work out. But it was my first. I was 18 as well. I went on my first date at 18. God bless me. But yeah, no, I remember that. And the song that was playing was "Perfect" by Ed Sheeran. So it's very very cheesy, but that's kind of cute. But I think that's really it's quite nice to have. A memory, especially being like the first memory of when you went on a date with someone, because some people have that when they're a little bit younger, about 14, 16, and you want to be really.
You got two types of people who there are people who experience it at a very young age, and you got people who are like in their early 20s, mid 20s.
Yeah, I mean, I know people who a couple of years my senior and still haven't lost their virginity.
Yeah,
virgins,
especially in 2022. I think. A bit more than 50% of men are virgins above the age of 20, and it's crazy. It's a crazy statistic, and it's kind of like reversed. Like less women are virgins than men are, and
I think the important thing to remember about a conversation like that is that except for the individuals involved in an activity, it's no one's business. As long as everyone is of the appropriate age. No, like it's true. As long as everyone is the and it is.
Above 18, not
But-
16, 18.
But no, but I just mean in a general sense
Yeah.
is that like oh, this person's like this. Like why do you care? Why has it got anything to do with you? Do you intend
Yeah,
to be with that person? No, then shut the fuck up. Like, just yeah. People love to. There's a couple of interesting points I'd like to make. One, too many people like to get involved in other people's business when it's nothing to do with them, and you think that you're the saving grace. You're not. You know just as much as them. You can present an idea, but don't think you have all the answers. And the other one is, everybody's talking, but nobody's listening. And I really believe in that philosophy, especially for the modern day. People will refuse to even have a conversation with someone if they are so far afield from their own opinions. But you can't not, if your friendship group or the people that you acknowledge as acquaintances or are that you are involved with, 100% agree with you on everything else, then you must live a very boring life. You need a difference of opinion.
Yes.
In
Yes, you do.
certain things. So myself and my esteemed gentleman, we have rather sort of different general political beliefs on some things.
We're similar in kind of our taste in film and stuff, but we're very different when it comes to politics, just in general relationships, and it's the same thing with my other friends too. Because I don't have that many friends. I have a small circle in general.
Oh,
But the friends that I have, they're kind of like it's like a hexagon, You
Yeah.
have friend here, friend here, friend here, friend. They kind of like. I find it interesting because I didn't even notice it until after I thought about,
yeah.
what kind of friends I have. That they are drastically different in at least one area from each other, from me, and so that kind of makes me feel good because that's what makes you balance. They say you're the average of the few people that you hang around with and you spend the most time with. So I like that. I like that the fact that you're one of my closest friends. You're different from my other friends. So it's kind of nice to have different perspectives, especially when you talk to them. Because if all you're talking to people who only have the same opinions as you, you're not going to grow.
Yes,
You're
I
not gonna
totally
learn.
agree with what you're saying. Absolutely, yes.
Yes. Okay. But did you watch this video when I sent you? Difference between books and movies.
I'm not sure.
You don't watch the videos I sent you?
I
Dickhead, man.
no, I do. You send me a lot though.
Yeah.
He also sends me a ridiculous amount of reels on Instagram, and some of them are just. He started sending me so much.
What's her name? Anna. What's the actress's name?
Oh, Anna de Armas.
Yes.
I wasn't actually going to talk about that, but yes, he sends me lots of Instagram
You
posts
love
regarding.
that though. You love her. So
She's a fantastic actress, and regarding especially as well, if you
yeah,
want
only
to.
if you were 10 years younger, you would have been a potential candidate for my friend. Right here.
It's incredibly interesting as well because I don't know if you've heard the articles recently within like the past couple of days about viewers of the film yesterday wanting to sue
That
Universal
was
for
crazy.
$5
That was-
million because Anna de Armas was in the trailer for yesterday and then did not
And-
pop up in the movie.
That was crazy to me. I was like, "Are you serious? You suing the film?" And I thought I was like, Patrick must have signed the petition too, But no, did you? You don't have to tell me.
I mean, I watched the deleted scene. I was like, okay, yeah, she looks great in it. It's an interesting. She played a character called Roxanne.
She was in a lot of films, a lot of old films that I didn't even notice her in until after she became a bit more.
Blade Runner
famous.
20. I didn't watch that,
I
but
didn't.
yeah,
I didn't even know. I forgot she was in Blade Runner until I rewatched it.
Yeah.
She was in The Big Short, which I watched after.
oh, I've not
Don't
seen
Look
that.
Up.
Yeah,
It's directed by Adam McKay.
Adam McKay. Yeah.
And I think he's a fantastic director who's got a particular style with his films. The
Well,
Don't Look
he's
Up.
dramatically changed his style in recent years, though, because he was the guy that directed Step Brothers and that was it Talamaka Haka fucking
Mm-hmm.
Crazy Nights. The one with the one about the stock racing with
Big Short. The Big Short.
no. There's another one. So he changed his style dramatically. he was very much known for sort of typical like American comedy. So like
He
Step.
directed the War Dogs too, right?
Double check on that one. But I know. So he directed
Type in War Dogs.
Step Brothers and that
Or
other
just
one.
type
that I
in
said.
Michael Adam McKay.
Is that right? Yeah.
Can we show me these movies? Vice. What's that?
The other guy. Oh, that says he was a producer. I don't know if he directed it. If we look at let's look at his director credits.
Where is it?
Just there. Can you read? Just there. Look there.
This one.
Yeah. So this is his. Excuse me. So if we scroll down. Yeah, Talladega Nights: The Ballad of Ricky Bobby. I think that was a movie about. It was a comedy with, not Will Smith. What's his name? Will fucking. Oh my god, I've forgotten his name. Elf. Will.
Will Ferrell.
No, is it Will Ferrell? The guy from Anchorman. What's his name? Will. Oh, I've forgotten his name.
Yeah, let's go back.
Will Ferrell. Hey,
I said
there we
it.
go.
I said Will Ferrell.
Oh, I thought you said Farrow. Yeah, Will Ferrell. So yeah, like he was the director of the Anchorman movies and Step Brothers, and then he dramatically changed
He's a
into.
very good director. Like, I love Don't Look Up. I understand, again, he had some backlash for people saying, oh, it's represented, political parties, it's just too much,
I don't
mean-
remember hearing any of the controversy regarding it,
People
but
are
I
like,
think
oh,
I think
people like all the evils were like Trumpers, and it's like lazy writing, and they're trying to make it.
I laugh when people say the word controversy these days, because controversy is when The Last Temptation of Christ came out in 1988, and there were people. There was an Oprah Winfrey special on the movie, and the director, the great Martin Scorsese, was getting like death threats and had to be escorted.
I mean,
by
nowadays it's so much that people are numb to it. Everything is
Well,
online,
it's,
and
it's
there's
not
like a
it's
new
not real
controversy
controversy.
every
What
day.
will happen is that there will be one small article by this person who say got like 10,000 followers,
Yeah.
and then it'll completely blow up. I guarantee that there was controversy about the Joker, the Todd Phillips Joker movie, and then he even said this in an interview. There was people saying, "Oh, it fetishizes or glorifies mental health issues,"
Yeah.
and then didn't even watch the movie. They were writing articles.
Romanticizes violence. And
Yes,
stupid
shit like that. But they weren't even watching the movie.
Yeah.
And he said himself, Todd Phillips, he doesn't buy into that bullshit.
Yeah.
Because the controversy, it's like I will not go. I discussed this on a podcast at university about 2 years ago, so I will not go into full detail. But it was like the controversy, the Marvel versus real cinema. That was so fucking ridiculous. Because
It's just an opinion of someone.
yeah, exactly. He made an opinion. It did not affect the box office or people's opinions of the movies. He wasn't. This is Mr. Scorsese. He wasn't outwardly trying to attack them. It was kind of discussed in an interview for Empire magazine,
Yeah.
and then it just kind of blew up. And then you've got people like, forgive me, but Mr. Tom Holland. This discussion was 2 years ago. It is dead and buried. And he was bringing it up in interviews and articles. And he was just like, dude, your film right now has made like $1 billion in 11 days. It's one of the fastest movies to ever make $1 billion yet. What are you complaining about? People love the movie. It's making money.
Yeah, just like what
Shut
you
the
like.
fuck up.
Let people have their opinion.
You've made your X millions amount of dollars. This is not to dishevel
Yeah.
the work that Mr. Holland did. I'm a fan of his work. He was he's a rather good actor. I think he's lost his way a little bit. I have no interest in seeing Chaos Walking or Uncharted. They look shite.
I'm so disappointed in Uncharted. If you don't know, it's one of the best video games
Yeah,
of
yeah.
all time. Like it's cinematic.
I don't play video games. I'm not a virgin. Sorry.
It's cinematic. I'll send you guys his Instagram. You can go there and roast him.
Oh, please don't. Please don't. Go on.
So Uncharted,
Yeah.
like, if you watch the game, bro, the gameplay is cinematic. Like when I made the documentary about gaming is my new cinema. It's about games like The Last of Us, Uncharted, because they kind of mix these two mediums so perfectly, so seamlessly.
Yeah.
that it kind of like becomes a viewing experience that you can interact with. You know what I
Okay.
mean? It's like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
4DX cinema.
Okay.
So, I'll show you this chase scene from Uncharted that you actually played, and you tell me. Uncharted. Like, it's phenomenal, this scene. Okay. And that's why they miscast. That's why they're so mad with the characters, because they had the perfect cast with Nathan Fillion for this guy and Sully. They just went with famous, easy Hollywood trendy.
Is
actor
this the
option.
guys who voiced the characters?
No. These are different characters that they actually wanted to play, but the studio rather opted in for Tom Holland and what's his name?
Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, Mark Wahlberg, which is
What was his
which
name?
Are, which are so different from the characters in this game.
Yeah.
There's 4 games, and they're miscast. They're not these characters. They can't. No actor can. Tom Holland can't play this character, in my opinion, because he just doesn't look like the same guy. If you're trying to
Yeah.
make this game into a film, you know, understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, no,
Because
of
you had the
course.
perfect option, and he just went with it.
You nerds
Bad
and your bloody
choice.
video games, honestly.
Okay, let's go.
Where the hell are you going? You're the one that just head down.
I mean, the game looks, it's not as high resolution as it should be, but the game itself, when you're playing
Yeah.
it's gorgeous. Like, the amount of work that goes into this game is phenomenal.
Yeah. Does this person know how to drive?
Wait, let me go forward a bit.
Hang on. All right, fellas. First time driver here. Got this? I don't got this. Oh, keep following that gun.
Okay.
Hey,
And this is all gameplay, by the way. Just
Okay.
wanted you to realize how cinematic these games are. This is like the Indiana Jones of video games.
I mean, Indiana Jones is also a video game, for sure.
Is it? This game for it?
There must be. I know there was a Lego Indiana Jones, if that counts.
I don't think so. Okay, we're just gonna watch this whole. It's like a few minutes, okay?
Sure.
We're gonna fast forward some bits too.
Sure.
Just suspend disbelief, okay, for a minute.
hit me.
Don't shoot at me!
Like, you see why Tom Holland can play this character just by the brief.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Holland is about 25 years old,
Yes.
who has the voice of a 15-year-old and looks
But,
about
but
12.
because he's not even playing it only his young version. He's playing him at this age, which is in his late 30s.
What?
In his 30s, yeah. It's the movie is rumored to be span across many years, from the first game, before the first game, to after the last game. This guy can't shoot, but okay.
I love in video games and movies where just people like beat the shit out of each other and just like leave them for dead, and it's just like, oh, no consequences. That was someone's family, man.
I know. I mean, it's okay once they're shooting at you, but
Yeah,
just
sure.
this is. Imagine this was filmed, you know, just one take. How epic this would be in an actual film. And you see, I mean, have you seen the Uncharted trailer?
I think I did.
You know that I'll show you the trailer after.
Yeah, show me the trailer.
Because this game, bro, if I ever buy you a PS5 for your birthday, if you get happy, and you know, if you get lucky, I'm gonna get you this game, right?
Sure.
Okay.
This is just so surreal. There's also a rumor as well that if you play Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, it perfectly syncs up.
You see how good this is?
Yeah, go on.
You see how good this is?
Yeah.
You see how
Get closer. Whoa.
See how it transitions into a cutscene from gameplay?
Hey, brother.
Okay, come on! Sam, get in the goddamn car! I'm faster! Stop arguing! Watch out!
Okay, this scene, this chase scene is gonna be absolutely amazing. So,
We're not up to the chase scene yet.
huh? No. It's coming.
That's also the first time that phrase has ever been said in this bedroom.
Yeah. He knows he used to spy on him.
Shut the fuck up.
Okay, watch this. Those guys suck at shooting though, I gotta admit. Okay, watch this. Imagine this as a one take, this following scene, imagine this as a single take in
Okay.
in the film.
Shit. Yeah.
Boy, you're really struggling, aren't you?
It's a fucking street. Hey there. Oh,
Don't worry, I got tissues, bro. You can get messy.
Are you sure you've got some tissues left?
Yeah, we got a whole box here, if in case you were wondering, dear audience. Okay, ready?
Mm-hmm.
Watch this scene. Okay, just watch this. Come on.
Holy shit. Yeah. You good? Yeah.
And they all lived happily ever after.
Now, just imagine that single take, how much work would go into that when you're making a film and trying to replicate that scene. Like, what did you think of that chase scene?
Fuck yes, 2 out of 2. I thought it was rather good. It was. I don't think there's anything particularly special that I like. I've certainly seen in other action movies, but I thought it would look cool. Why not?
I don't think any action movie has done something like this. A single take. Imagine an action movie single take.
I mean,
scene like this.
I'm sure it's probably been done once or twice, 3 times a lady. But
Okay, Uncharted trailer. This is the trailer they're focusing on,
toffee.
which is like the.
Can't find them in. They're not.
They're just recreating the game, which is pointless to me.
Hey, Kid Martin. I think you're here.
I'm still gonna watch it.
If we find
This is from the game we just watched. Looking for this pirate treasure.
go, you find it too.
You don't have a base. I'm a friend of Sully. Sally doesn't have any friends. I should not have more of them.
My family. If I have lived since I was a kid.
Okay, you see this scene? So this scene is from Uncharted 3, which came out 10 years ago. So, yeah, this looks really janky now. Oh, what did I do? Oh my god.
Oh, you bastard. So I'm talking with my mouth.
Okay, okay.
That's really inappropriate.
This was their Tom Cruise shot.
Show me the money.
You see, this is an exact recreation of that scene from the.
That's kind of cool.
And in all the trailers, this is the scene they focus on. Like, this is the money shot. So that's why I don't understand why they. First of all, if you're gonna make the film, make it a new story, not what we've already seen, you know, and cast it correctly. It goes back inside, then it jumps back again. Okay. Okay, predictions. It's gonna die.
What? Oh my god, he lives.
Amazing.
Oh, thank god.
So you see, they're just recreating the film,
Mm.
they're recreating the game, which is already perfect to me. And it's kind of like, whatever. Okay, so, back to this video. I've sent you a couple of videos of Jordan Peterson, he's kind of like your psychologist. And he used to teach in the University of Toronto, and he's got a couple of books. He's a religious man too, and he focuses a lot on the storytelling aspect of it. And this one I sent you a couple of days ago. We're gonna watch together. The difference between books and movies, you know.
Questions?
This is a great discussion that I recommend having with your friends.
Difference between books and movies.
Yes, absolutely. It's a great discussion. Or also have it on a date. That'd be fun.
Oh no, don't.
Yeah, don't debate on a date. That's foolish. The only debate should be chicken or the steak. Your place or my place?
Sure.
Can you hear it?
Wait, do you want to put
Yes.
the closed captions on,
That's
please?
exactly why. Because, you see, the less sophisticated the genre, the more the genre is like real life. And the more sophisticated it is, the more it has abstracted out across instances of real life the fundamental lessons. And that's what makes something profound and deep.
Do you understand
It's
that statement?
extracted from multiple sources, and the
So it says the less
Vaguely.
sophisticated, the less sophisticated the genre is, the more like real life. So if you don't focus on genre, you just make something up. Let's say you improvise something and you film
Yeah.
it. That's like a documentary. That's more like real life. And the more focus on genre it is, the abstract ideas in that genre is more like the. I can't talk like him, but just let him.
Yeah,
speak.
no, he's an incredibly
Across
well-spoken
instances
individual
of
and a
real
very
life, the
intelligent
fundamental
person. I have watched a couple of
Abstract
videos of his.
Yeah.
Um,
So it kind of speaks to that, again, biblical stories, genre, kind of comes
Yeah.
from that religious aspect.
well, yeah, no, I get what he's referring to, and I can. I mentioned this earlier. The the French filmmaker that we were discussing. So there was a film that came out within the past couple of months called Titane, I believe that is the correct pronunciation. It's a French film, which the Academy has completely snubbed, and it is a very wacky film. I took a mutual friend of ours to go see it, and I was
Yeah,
a
but
bit
sorry
drunk.
with Chris, right?
No, I saw it with Niall.
Oh, yeah.
Chris refused to watch it. He was like, "Yeah, I'm not watching this."
Chris is busy
It was
right
the
now.
one we were talking about before about the car sex Transformers Triple X, but it is not about a woman. So this is the general plot. I'm not necessarily spoiling anything because this is very well known within the movie. She gets pregnant by the car.
She doesn't get literally pregnant. She thinks she gets pregnant.
No, she gets pregnant by
Oh,
the
she
car.
does?
Yeah,
Oh,
she
okay.
actually get like.
I thought she's like.
No, she gets pregnant from this car.
Wow.
The sex scene is something to be decided, let me tell you. But it is not about sex with a car. It is about so much other things. And this is not completely far afield. This is something that's been experimented with before. So there's an amazing playwright, and I believe he was a scriptwriter as well, called Peter Schaffer. And in the 70s, he wrote a play called Equus. Equus is about a young lad, 17, called Alan Strang, who is sent to a psychiatrist because he blinds 6 horses with pitchforks. Like, what the fuck, that's crazy. And then you kind of realize that the reason was because he had, throughout his childhood, he'd confused religion and sex, which is not completely uncommon. Like, there are a lot of paintings and sculptures which are quite graphic, to say the least. And so he becomes obsessed with horses and gets that confused with physical and sexual attraction.
Right.
So I studied this in theatre. So I took an A-level in theatre.
Kind of reminds me of a crazy pornographic video that was going around a while ago, and the fucking horse rams his horse cock into the guy. That's like one of the.
And you've seen this video?
I'm not gonna answer that question, but it was going on. It's like the 2 girls, 1 cup, right? And yeah, it's insane. Don't watch it. Don't watch it. It's very traumatic. But
Jesus Christ.
so that's probably. How old is this film? 70s, you said.
It was a play first.
Maybe the guy watched the film, then decided to let this horse
Maybe.
desecrate his.
But
his
my point is, and the reason in connection to what Mr. Peterson was saying, Dr. Peterson, if I'm not mistaken,
yeah.
is that the play Equus is not about sex with horses. That's not what it's about at all. It is about the very fragile mind of adolescence and going through that, and how much your surroundings are influenced. So when the further you go into this, you see that his mother was incredibly religious and was middle class, and it's set in England, by the way, and his father was from a more working class background and was an atheist. And so not only the class issues, but also the issues are being raised by people with 2 very philosophical different beliefs, and they tried to impose that on him, and he got confused. And I really recommend reading the play. It's incredibly interesting.
Okay, that's
And
interesting.
so again, that sounds like something very graphic and very, but what it's really about is the pubescent mind and going through that.
I think it's
from
something you
ultimate-
have to watch to understand. I think it's one of those things you have to actually, see it, watch it from start to finish to understand what it is.
But I think the important thing behind that is kind of, I think it was a point I was making earlier, that sometimes you can go completely far afield, but it is so crazy and so ridiculous that it actually is almost more human and more real. Because
Right.
yes, it's not 2 guys talking in a room, but what it is, it's discussing things that maybe, I mean, how many times have we sat, we put our phone away for the night and we just sat there and just think like, what if pigs could actually fly? Like, you just have these crazy, ridiculous, and some films, almost people don't like them because they're so weird. But what they're really doing is presenting you with visual images and stories that you've probably thought of and like the most fucked up shit in your head, and they're showing you, no, like this is stuff we thought about.
Because
It's
it
a bit
stemmed
weird.
from something, you know.
Yeah, it stemmed
like
from
the dreams
something.
you have,
Yeah.
the ideas that you have, like, they can mean something. They can symbolize or represent, you know, whatever your beliefs are, or what your
No, absolutely.
observation of the world is. But,
People fear what they don't understand. The more you
Yeah.
understand, the more open you are. I was thinking about this on the way here. And you can debate this by all means, but I think there's kind of a really common misconception, especially for anyone young who still goes to school or college or university. I was certainly like this, and you may feel afraid to ask questions in class, or maybe it's even in work. You know, you're in a meeting and you're unsure. Try and get out of that as best as possible, because the most intelligent person in the room is the person that asks all the questions, not the person that thinks they have all the answers. Because if you're asking questions, you are more open to learning. If you think you have all the answers, then you think that your learning is over. Your learning is never over. This is something that you'll have been told your entire life, and keep on remembering it. Never be afraid to ask questions, because if you don't understand, then you won't get it.
yeah,
it's
you
very,
have to-
very simple.
You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable around people who are actually smarter than you or have more experience than you, so you can learn
Yes,
from
absolutely.
them and see a different perspective. But let's just continue this, see where
And
this
that's what
goes.
makes something profound and deep. It's abstracted
After
from
this, we're
multiple
going to
sources,
discuss
and
films of 2021, the best ones, and the upcoming 2022 films.
Yes, I think we've got an interesting year ahead of us
it
for cinema.
flies across multiple dimensions, because that's what you want. It's like, and here's why, fundamentally, it's like you have a problem, but that's not the problem. The problem is that there are problems. So the problem is a meta problem.
Me and
There
Jordan
are
dress the
problems.
same.
You need a solution.
I dress like a celebrity.
Yeah, and none of you are
That's a
Italian.
meta solution
Both
to
of you are just
classic
pretending.
problem. Right, right. And that's what people
Well, is he Italian
have to
American?
figure out. Ever since we were in
No,
the
no, I
practice
think
of figuring
he's
things
just
out.
Canadian-
It's
Canadian.
not how do you solve a problem?
I think it might have
It's how
roots
you
from
actually
Ireland.
Oh, he's Canadian, isn't he?
problem
Yeah.
of
A
problem.
boat,
And
yeah.
that's basically
I wonder if he's afraid of the dark.
complexity of life and the fact that you're mortal and vulnerable. So,
So then a follow-up question. From your book, you have this sort of strata from play all the way up to religion, and beyond that, so you're looking back
Yeah.
retroactively in philosophy and rationality.
yes.
Is radical.
And then there
Well,
was
that's
silence.
a good.
What? Someone just keeps playing with the volume on this one.
If you really want to think this through, the best way to do that is to read Nietzsche. and-
Why the fuck did you just say 9/11 in the bottom left-hand corner?
We did it.
Yeah, look, go back.
Read Nietzsche and Dostoevsky.
Do you reckon it's... Look right there. Do you reckon it's a conspiracy?
Maybe it's just saying call 911 if you're mentally challenged.
Oh,
If you
right.
need some help, you
Or
know.
maybe it's saying that Jordan Peterson did not... No, shit, I shouldn't say that.
Nietzsche was actually quite heavily influenced.
Have you read
by
Nietzsche?
Dostoevsky.
Pardon?
Have you read Nietzsche?
No.
I think I read one of his books.
Nietzsche was actually quite heavily influenced by Dostoevsky, more than people knew, although their thought runs very
No, I
parallel.
read Carl. Sorry, my bad. I
And
read
so-
Carl Jung's. Basically, he wrote this book about dreams and what they mean.
Oh yeah, I know of Carl Jung. I've not read his work though.
I'm not sure if I read Nietzsche yet.
Yes, that's something that you need to learn as well,
Dostoevsky is
people.
like the ultimate
Read,
dramatist.
read, read.
He embodies his ideas.
If you're not reading, you're not
and
learning.
act out
Yeah.
in the dramatic space. It's literary. Whereas Nietzsche has taken that up one level of abstraction to the semantic. He says, well, here's what's going on in an articulated way. But he doesn't embody it in the story. And you might say, well, that's higher, but it's only higher in a way. It's more abstract in that it's more like words. Whereas what Dostoevsky does is half words and half images, right? Because when you read a novel, what happens is that people say, and the postmodernists say, well, where the hell's the meaning in that novel? It's like, it's not in the word, it's not in the phrase, it's not in the sentence, it's not in the paragraph, where do you localize the meaning? Great question. Their answer sucks, but the question is great. So, but what happens partly when you're reading a book is that a novel.
Always doing that bend over the
words
table teacher
trigger
thing.
Representations in your imagination, and a lot of the information from which, a lot of what you extract the information from is actually.
You just know that when people
your
watch this, they're gonna
imagistic
skip
representation
over the
of
section
the
where
words.
they're watching the
And that
video of someone
imagistic
watching the video.
representation is
What do you mean?
So,
No,
like-
people love this section actually. This is the parts they actually watch.
Okay, how many views do you usually get?
10, 15, if I'm being.
Fair enough.
Thank you, all the 10, 15 people who watch this boring interview, but I appreciate it.
How dare you? Boring, but at least we look pretty.
I mean, I'm the one who's boring, not Mr. Patrick Cerra.
That's not how you say it. Right? Can I sweeping declaration? So we just graduated a few months back, and so when you apply for the graduation ceremony, you have to put down obviously your name, but then how you phonetically say it so that they don't misunderstand it. And so there's the fucking video, man. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So my surname is Italian, and CE. So my surname is CERRA. And CE in Italian is not ke, it's che. So there's like a silent H in the middle, how you pronounce it. That's how it comes across in the Italian language. So I don't know what the hell that poor woman was reading, but it was certainly not my surname. And this bastard, every time he sees me, he goes, Patrick, and she said it, cheer, like she elongated it. She went, Patrick,
Yeah.
cheer.
Cerra.
And I rock up in my best suit, and I'm just like, for fuck's
I
sake.
think she really enjoyed saying your name. She
Yeah.
said my name correctly, which I was
Yeah,
surprised.
like,
Mr. Arshia Hashemi. I was like, oh, that's better than I can say it. Fucking hell.
and then he
Mr.
didn't. He did,
Patrick, I think it's is it Anthony? I never heard that one before. Anthony, yes, Anthony Cerra.
he jokes, but he was incredibly sweet the next day because if you watch the video of his graduation, he just so the chancellor, because of the pandemic, we couldn't shake the hands, which is what you traditionally do, so we were supposed to nod. He just rocks up and goes, yo, doesn't nod at all, looks out at the audience and walks off. And this guy, he was just so apologetic the next day. He was like, oh my God, I think I should ring them up. And I was just like,
No, I was like, let me just go talk to the chancellor. I mean, I didn't mean to offend him, but I just forgot to.
you afraid of offending someone? Oh my God, are you changing?
I forgot to,
Yeah.
acknowledge him, but because it's a ceremony, you have to do it right if you're gonna do it. So
It was a wonderful, thank you to the University of Salford, because it was an absolutely wonderful
yeah,
ceremony.
your classes fucking sucked, but at the end we had a nice ceremony.
We did different degrees, just saying. Oh yes, I agree, your degree sucked.
Okay.
Imagistic representation is richer than the words because it's informed by all of your knowledge about people. And so you know this happens because you go to a movie like the Harry Potter movies and you say, that's not how I imagined it. Right? The probability that there'd be a one-to-one correspondence between your internal representation of the book and the movie is zero. And usually the movie is less rich than the book. I mean, I love movies and they have their own place, that's for sure, but miniseries, the series now are more approaching the complexity and depth of literature because they can extend across 20 hours. They don't have to compress a 12-hour reading experience into 2 hours of action. So yeah, and so what I was trying to do with that hierarchy was to show how the knowledge moved. Like first of all, it's kind of implicit in your biology, and then it's distributed into society. And then by imitating society, you make it part of your procedures, and then you watch your own procedures and start to build a representation of them, and then you can articulate that representation. And it's a bootstrapping process too, because once you've made the
I feel like watching his
representation,
videos just makes you a
that's
better
the
writer
effect
because
of
when you
way
understand the
behave.
concepts
So they start to loop.
and how
Yeah.
you go
So
about
here's one
these
idea.
things,
So imagine that.
So interesting.
Imagine that there's a type of male.
He has a
who's
program
really
called the
dominant.
self-authoring program too. It's like teaches you how to become more articulate through writing and reading.
Okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Hierarchy contest and to merge at the top. Well, that's the case. That is the case, and that's why you're the way you are.
Yeah, when you're
So what
learning
happens on human
and
beings
progressing
is
as a
so
writer,
cool.
always make sure you
Human
don't
females are
lose
choosy maters.
your
So-
own. It's a very sort of. Sorry to cut the video again. It's a very important thing to remember though, because it's something that I've had to learn as I'm forwarding with script writing. You can't lose your own voice. It's such a sort of cringy thing to say because it's kind of it's said a lot, but you kind of and I see it a lot with script writers coming up who are at this a similar height with me, where everything will be very thought out and then technically brilliant. They've hit their beats, they've got their 3-act structure.
But it's not their idea.
there's-
It's been
Well, it's not that. There's no there.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is that, like, it reads well. It's got this particular action line in it, but there's no, you don't get a feeling for it. I think it was Roger Ebert who sadly passed on, but he was it was Siskel and Ebert. For decades, they ran an American TV show. I think they were journalists as well. They were film critics. Excuse me. Really good tea. Courtesy of Mr. Hashemi's mother. But they were film critics. And then Roger Ebert once said, I'm going to butcher this, it was, movies are machines that generate empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you read a script, if you don't get an impression, if you don't feel anything, then I'm not going to be cool enough to say that it's garbage, but you need to work out what the like you have to get and that's the thing as well. Even if I was thinking about this today, even if you really hate a movie, it still technically
Still
works.
an emotion.
Because
if you
the worst thing you could have is a movie. Yeah, it was alright.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish your talk.
No, that's what I mean. Like the worst thing you can have is someone says to a movie, "Yeah, it was alright." Like I'd probably take this back if someone told me this, but I'd much rather have someone say they hated my movie and here's why, rather than yeah, it was alright, because they've actually like it's generated an impression from them. Like they've found a reason, and that's the thing as well. Never try and make a film for everybody, and never try and make a film for nobody. In the marketplace, they're going to completely disagree with me. But what's important that if at least one person either changes their mindset or learns something, then you've done your job. You're not trying to. You can't make a film for everybody. You just can't. It is physically impossible. The Godfather, as an example, which is being re-released for the 50th anniversary on February 25th. So please go and check it out, because if you've never seen it, it is one of the great movies of all time.
Oh yes, we're gonna go see that too together.
Absolutely. But someone that I work with, who worked in a cinema for almost a decade, can't stand the movie. Thinks it's really boring.
Yeah.
Now this is a movie that is worldwide. You know, it is beloved worldwide.
Right.
But still, not everyone loves it.
I mean, you can't have everyone love it.
Exactly.
Film.
So
It's
please
just-
remember
it
this,
doesn't work.
and to kind of go back to the point of writing, like you don't necessarily have to like. You can write something about, say someone says to you, okay, you're hired to write this movie. Okay, well, it's about a tsunami in a foreign country that you've never been to. Shit, I don't know how to write that. Yes, you do, because you understand empathy. You're a human being who generates emotion. You probably never witnessed a tsunami, but you can empathize, for fuck's sake. It's so, I can't believe that that I have to. I'm not going to be pretentious enough to say that I have to explain this to people, but it really bugs me, which is like, how am I supposed to? You empathize, you try and understand, but at the same time, like, I was writing something a couple of days ago, which I sent to a writers group. We were given a challenge to write a 3-page Christmas short, and we read it last night, and yeah, it wasn't technically brilliant, it had some flaws in it, but they said, it felt like a warm blanket, and it generated an emotion. Because I kind of loosely based it on kind of like my experiences and what Christmas was like for me as a child. Again, it certainly needs some more work on it, but it generated an impression, some empathy.
That's the basics of if you
it's
simplify,
the basics, but people fucking forget it.
Yeah, if you simplify what a movie is down to its fundamental, it's something that makes you feel, something that leaves an impression on you.
Yes.
Doug? So, what's the best film? Is it the film that has the best message, or is the film that makes you feel these emotions and has that long
the one that does
lasting
both.
effect on you, right?
Well, that's the thing though as well.
It's different for people, but I mean, it's going to be different for people because Stephen King said it in his book on writing. He said, writers think in order to produce a good work, you need to always make all of your audience happy. Okay? But you can't do that. You can't even sometimes make all of your audience happy with some of your work. You just have to work that you can make some of your audience happy with some of your work, like, because it doesn't work like that. You can't produce a work that satisfies all of your audience, and you don't have the ability to produce a piece of art that is always going to be up to standard. So Is you just have to work. Sometimes your work is going to be good, and even if that work is good, it's only going to satisfy some of the audience and not all of them. So that's what you have to strive for, because at the end of the day, it's a pointless goal to go after, satisfying the
Yeah,
general
you have to
audience.
you have to be selfish when you're a writer, because the word itself and the connotations of selfishness is negative, but it can be positive. If you're thinking about the well-being of yourself, you're being selfish. But if you can't look after yourself, then how are you expected to look after others when it's required? And that's another thing as well when it comes to your writing. You have to be happy with your own work, because then if you're unhappy and then by some miracle your work is successful, but regardless, there are still going to be some people who don't like it. But if you make your work, if you really love your work and you're so, you're proud of it, then yeah, it might ultimately fail. But again, there's probably still going to be someone out there that you have to, because sorry to be bleak, but when you die, if you're a writer and when you die, the work that lives on is going to be your writing. Do you want to be remembered for stuff that you never liked or stuff that you do like? It's not a difficult question. You have to make sure that when you're writing something, it's something that you care about and something that you want to write. That's not to say regardless, like we live in the real world, you're going to be given jobs where, and we're kind of talking more creatively writing. Obviously in the corporate world, it's a bit different, but we're talking generally in a creative consensus that, you're going to have to unfortunately sometimes do jobs which you may not love, and that's inevitable.
And that's
but
life,
That is just
have
life.
to do
But
things
do
that
your
you
best
don't want.
to fundamentally, find what it is for you. Because and this is the thing as well. Take everything that that Dr. Peterson is saying here about the works of like the theological and philosophical thing, but at the same time, I think it's David Lynch that said yes, every story has already been told, but not by you.
Yeah. That's
Just
enough.
write that shit down on paper.
Yeah,
It's very, very simple.
that's enough. That's enough to basically. Okay, we're just gonna finish this video quickly so we
Many
can.
men fail in their reproductive efforts as females fail. Okay, but the men who succeed are more successful. So women are on average more successful, and men are on average more failures and more successful. And I'm talking strictly about reproduction here, although it generalizes to other areas, but I'm talking about reproduction. So how does it work exactly? Well, the women have a real problem with mate selection. It's like, who the hell are you going to have as a mate? And it's too complex to work out. So women in their genius don't. They let the men
Whenever
compete,
someone
and
says
they-
mate, I think of like dogs fucking. Just it sounds weird to me. Like I don't like that choice of words when it comes to like mating.
Well, it's quite funny because
Mate with my
for any of the non-English viewers, mate is a common thing that we use as a term for
Yeah.
friend. Oh, you're right, mate. So I'm not saying you're right, person I want to fuck.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, sometimes we do mean
I
that.
won't
But
ever say I want to mate with that girl right there. I want to mate her.
imagine how great English love songs. I wanna mate with you, till you drop your drawers. Yeah.
acting out the
I'm not a
assumption
songwriter,
that the
as you can
man
tell.
who wins is the best
You can
man.
make poetry
It's
into
a good
songs.
assumption, because if you have a bunch of men competing,
I think it was Bukowski that said, "We write poetry when there's nothing else left," and I love that. I love that quote.
You can think, well, they may
Bukowski
not
was
be
a
worth much,
great
but they're better
German
than anyone
writer.
else
Go
at
check him out.
whatever it is that they're doing. And that makes men.
That's
at the
Charles
top of the
Bukowski.
governance hierarchy is very attractive to women.
Look, 9/11 popped there again.
Accelerate that.
Yeah, that's
so
strange.
You can imagine they're more likely to reproduce.
Do 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 do.
So what happens is that the
Do you reckon George Bush is watching this video and shitting himself?
becomes inbuilt into the biology across time, and the women exaggerate that.
He's
by
probably sitting at home watching
differentially
Golden Girls.
allowing the men to reproduce.
R.I.P.
And that's also
Is
why they're
it
Mother
Betty
Nature.
White?
They really are
Yeah.
Mother Nature. It's not just a metaphor. And so then the representation and the biology start to tangle together. And that's like, well, that's the difference between a meme and an archetype. Right? A meme is this idea that propagates itself, but an archetype is an idea that has propagated itself.
I love that he's talking
across
about
such a
memes.
massive span of time that it's actually shaped the course of evolution itself. And man, I can
That's
tell
very
you already
interesting.
how this.
Hmm.
It isn't necessarily that
So
you even
meme have the
compete
potential
with other
to
men in order to see who wins.
alter
As soon as you
course of
admire
revolution from
someone,
now on.
Well, I remember
that'll happen
reading in a
unconsciously.
video
You won't-
once,
you won't
someone
know it's their
said,
next ideal. There's-
thanks to GIFs, we're living in the golden age of silent cinema, and I wanted to throw my TV out of my window. don't you ever say something like that again. I was fucking fuming. What disgusting phrase to say. Don't get me wrong, I love a good GIF. My favorite one is the one from The Simpsons, and I use it in a sort of jolly way, where Homer just shouts "nerd," goes "nerd." So GIFs have their purpose, but please don't ever compare them to silent cinema again, because I would be incredibly annoyed with you.
Yeah, don't do it. He's gonna come after you. So I feel like we haven't got much time, so let's just quickly go through our best films of 2021.
Yes, absolutely.
What time is it right now? What time do you have to go? What time?
I have a prior engagement at 5:10, but I think it'll only take about half an hour to get there. So, although I do need to
is
be
it
there
half an
early.
hour?
Yeah, because I just have to get it's like, you guys don't need to know this, I'll probably go out. Yeah, no, my prior engagement is at 5:10, so as long as I leave here from 4 o'clock, I should be fine.
4 o'clock? Nah, that's too early, bro. 4:30. I feel like if you get a
Yeah, but
taxi,
I need to get there early.
How early?
Probably maybe 2. We'll discuss this after the podcast, it'll be fine. We've got time to
we'll
discuss
leave
this.
That is for later.
Okay.
You give me your favorite films, let's say. Top 10.
Top 10.
I feel like we
Ooh.
need to have a part 2 just for discussing the films because we have so many on the list.
We really do. Can I do top 15, please?
Do top 15.
Yeah. I also want to give an honorable mention out to a short film that I saw called Wrath. It was made by it was written by a friend of mine. It was a tremendous film. I believe it's in the festival circuit right now.
Mm-hmm.
So please, if you ever see it, it's called Wrath. It's an amazing short film, so please go check it out. But onto this list for 2021, and if we've got time, we'll briefly discuss 2022.
Okay.
My top 15. This is including streaming services. So check some of these out if you can't make it to the pictures to go watch them. Number 15 is Don't Look Up, as we discussed earlier. I thought it was an incredible. For me, if
Very
you,
nice film.
it was a very. It didn't utilize its cast amazingly. You see a lot of issues with that with like the all-star cast kind of movies, but for me, whilst people, it is very steeped in conversations regarding politics. I think for me anyway, when you watch it as a comedy, you just have a lot more fun with it.
Yeah.
I quite enjoyed it. Palm Springs, which is on Amazon Prime, I was a bit nervous about watching this one because for me, it was a Groundhog Day-esque kind of storyline that has been redone. And to be honest, I didn't really love the first, the Groundhog Day when it came out in the 80s. I didn't love it.
I think it's an interesting film.
I love that when I
So
say
I'll
like,
check that
oh,
one out.
in the 80s when, like, as if I was there. But yeah, but Palm Springs is by Andy Samberg and Kristen Milioti, and a brief cameo by
J.K. Simmons.
J.K. Simmons. He's in it
Right.
as well, and it's a very charming film. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Number 13, Ghostbusters Afterlife. It was not the best film, I'll be honest, but the reason why it's in my top 15 is because I just really enjoyed it. It was very fan servicey. It was basically a remake of the original, but I just enjoyed it. I really did. It was fun.
I haven't watched any of the Ghostbusters.
What?
I haven't watched any of them.
You virgin. It was it was just a lot of fun. And the young girl Phoebe in the movie, excuse me, I can't remember the girls. I think she's called, I want to say Mackenzie Grace. I think that's her name. But the young girl who plays the granddaughter of one of the older Ghostbusters, she's superb in the movie. She really is. It's incredibly fun, and she's
Yeah, I heard good reviews.
yeah, she was
of
great
her
in
acting.
that. Number 12, Fear Street Part 1, 1994. I reshaped my my list before I arrived, and this has certainly come up because I think I watched Part 2, and I don't think I made it to Part 3.
There's
but
3 parts, right?
there's 3 parts, yeah.
I got bored the first 10 minutes and turned it off.
Oh, no, I really enjoyed it. It was by R.L. Stein. The Goosebump books were very popular as a child. I wasn't really into them. I didn't, and I know they made a movie with Jack Black. I didn't watch it,
Right.
but
It just felt very campy to me. You know, it felt.
no, it
felt
felt
cheap.
very Stranger Things esque, and we're seeing a lot of that where this sci-fi / horror from the perspective of, I mean, it's always kind of been teenagers anyway, but Stranger Things has really set the pathway for a lot of, an almost new style in a way. But I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm not the biggest fan of horror. I'm kind of slowly making my way into horror. But no, I enjoyed it. It was a while ago when I saw it, but I really enjoyed it. Number 11, West Side Story, as we were discussing earlier. Again, incredibly
Steven, right?
well.
Steven Spielberg.
Directed by the great Steven Spielberg. For me, I just enjoyed it because I kind of went into it thinking to myself, I'm watching it because I'll get the movie. I'll just go to the movies, and because I tried to watch the original and I really struggled with it. I can't get past the first 10 minutes, but I don't leave the cinema even if I'm not enjoying a movie. Memoria. That's a 2022 movie. It's very...
Okay, answer this. This one or La La Land from 2016?
Oh, La La Land.
Okay.
Probably. Okay. I'd have to give them both a rewatch. But yeah, West Side Story was incredibly entertaining. Adriana DeBose, I think her name is. I hope she wins the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. She was absolutely superb. And so was the rest of the cast. I struggle to remember some of the names. But yeah, just incredibly fun. I think the first 10 minutes still was a bit, but there were some really superb moments in it. Number 10, we're in the top 10 now.
Nice.
Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. With the exception of Spider-Man, which I think is the best MCU film that's come out this year. Shang-Chi, again, I've noticed this a lot recently. Sometimes, for some reason, just films don't know how to open anymore, I find. I really struggle. So, but I'll be honest, the first 20 minutes of Shang-Chi, I found very formulaic, and I was like, I don't know.
I actually liked the beginning, the opening, like the fight his dad and mom had together. I think that was very.
But it was when it just like I knew when it snapped into the real day. I'm just like,
yeah, that one.
I knew he was going to be in his bed and he was going to go to work, and I just knew that was going to happen. I was like, yeah. But the bus scene, and as well, Aquafina. I need to finish watching The Farewell, but she was superb in Crazy Rich Asians, which is an incredibly funny, witty movie, and she's also great in this. She's got a fantastic career ahead of her as an actress, and I look forward to seeing her in more films.
The Last Dragon too. She was the dragon.
I've not seen that. I will check it out.
I actually liked Raya, the Last Dragon, more than Encanto, which a lot of people disagree
controversial.
with me. But I think it was a good film, Shang-Chi, but the last act
I like the last act.
It for me.
That dragon was just so beautiful.
It was so marvelly. If they kept the story more contained, father and son rivalry.
Not gonna lie,
have no dragons, have no MCU big fight. If there was just one-on-one, closed fight, more intense, more personal, it kind of felt Marvel to me. That's what lowered the ranking for me. It could have been in my top 10, but for that third.
You've seen Hawkeye, right?
Yes.
Right. Not gonna lie. I mean, it would have been a bit of a stretch, but I would have loved to have seen the Aquafina character in Hawkeye, because she's become an archer in. that would have been interesting.
Yeah,
but
then, just pick up an arrow and shoot, and she's the best archer in that whole damn mystical village. Apparently,
it was pretty cool. Number 9, Tick Tick Boom, which is on Netflix. I wasn't going to watch this, despite me mentioning earlier about my interest in the theatre for so many years. I never saw Rent. I know the opening song, the Seasons of Love, but it just, I don't know why I never took an interest in it. I do intend to after this, though, because we both watched it and thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think for me it was because it's about a struggling writer who sacrifices his livelihood, his relationship, and there's the moment that hit me really wonderfully was him and his girlfriend had separated because he spent, I think it was about 8 years trying to get this musical promoted so he could put it on stage, and then it fundamentally was a flop. And then it was his birthday, and there was this scene where they're outside the diner where it works, and they've separated by this point, and she has a little bag in her hand, and he opens it up, and the present is an empty songbook, and she turns around and says, "For the next one." And that really took me for very personal reasons, and it just, that kind of moment of what she's gifting him is his next opportunity.
Yeah. And the songs are fantastic too, especially the song he sang in the empty theater on the piano after he found out his
I quite liked Bohemia and Therapy. I feel bad that you feel bad about what you said about what he said. So yeah, Tick Tick Boom. Even if you're not because you're not a musical, I am.
Yeah.
You're not a musical theater
I'm not
person.
particularly musical. person.
But it's a really beautiful movie. So
Very good
props
film.
to Lin-Manuel Miranda for that. Number 8, one that we mentioned earlier.
Number 9.
No, number 9 was Tick Tick Boom.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Number 8, The Courier, a film that we mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
It was just incredibly well made, and Benedict Cumberbatch has been working very hard recently.
Yeah, he's everywhere.
Is everywhere.
He's everywhere.
And he's just he just kind of has that classic sort of leading man appeal.
He's like
Which
he's like
is-
Liam Neeson in the 2000s. You know, Liam
Excuse
Neeson
me.
was in everything in 2000s. It's kinda
Yeah,
like the,
or Jude Law, even as far back as someone say like Cary Grant in the golden age of Hollywood cinema, just like this very bankable leading man, which are kind of they're kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like because you have like what we call like character actors. But that's basically just like acting anyway. But like the leading man sort of thing is basically the protagonist, the hero in the, I think it's 8 archetypal characters. The hero, the princess, the wise old man, that sort of thing. And they're kind of seen as like, oh, not that well developed, and so therefore people are just like, the characters aren't that interesting. But there is always a place for a leading man and a leading woman, because they have to serve. They have to take you on the journey of the story, and he just executes it so well, and he's so wonderful in this movie.
very good film. I agree.
Number 7, No Time to Die. I'll be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I respect the choice.
I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I thought it was incredibly well made. I particularly loved the. I think he was in.
It needed more Anna. You know, Anna's appearance was too short. So.
It was, but at least the producers of No Time to Die aren't going to be sued for $5 million. But no,
I mean,
she
'cause
was
Alice
superb
Adams-
in it as well. I
she
think
was
kind of
very good.
I think
Very good.
it was great to see someone who, I mean, much like Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig is a very attractive person and a badass in the same way that she was clearly a very glamorous character, but also could kick. We say in England arse, but we mean ass. She could kick ass, and
yeah.
but yeah, no. Overall, I thought I'll be honest, I didn't love the opening. I thought the opening to Spectre was much more interesting.
I actually liked the opening, but I mean, I didn't like the part
I
where
preferred the opening to Spectre with the.
I like the action. I mean, it didn't make sense, the opening, how they went about it, but it was well produced. It was well made. The action scene.
Don't get me wrong, it is a flawed movie. I think Rami Malek's character needed way more development.
He was so bad. He was such a bad villain.
But-
I mean, I'm not saying Rami Malek was bad. He's a great actor.
No,
but the
he's a
material,
superb actor.
the writing was bad. It was just a bad character in general. So generic. So.
But I think overall the
So-
reason why it's number 7 is because I just think when you kind of sometimes what you have to do for me anyway, and how I work out a list of movie rankings is that regardless you're going to have some positives and negatives, but if the overall positives outweigh the negatives, then it deserves some merit. And I think whilst the antagonist, the Rami Malek character, was tremendously flawed from a writing perspective, all the other components were just absolutely phenomenal. The new 007 character, I thought she was an incredible
she was
asset.
Pretty good. She was pretty good.
to
People thought
the
she
movie.
was going to be like a tokenized character just for representation and all that, but she was a good character.
No, it's
I
a great
think
character.
It was handled
Yeah.
nicely.
Number 6, A Quiet Place Part 2. We saw this together.
We saw this. It
And
was
I
one
was-
of the first films we saw in this.
I was
year.
so annoyed by him because I was like, oh, let's go see A Quiet Place Part 2. And then because I'd never seen Part 1, so I rented it that morning and then we saw it in the afternoon. And he was like,
I haven't watched it.
oh, I've not watched Part 1. I was like, you fucking
But
knobhead.
it made sense. It made sense to me. It was a good film. So
I really
it's-
liked it.
even without it stood on its own
Yeah.
as a film. The number 2. So
I think
that
what-
impressed me.
Yeah, I think what made it for me is that Part 1 was incredibly interesting because it was a well executed film directed by John Krasinski from The Office and other things. But for me, the reason why it worked is that the first one was a very simple plot, and it was it was executed well. It wasn't overcomplicated, and so the reason why part 2 works so well is that it kind of it's like, where could you go with this? Well, he, spoiler alert, he's not involved in part 2 as much as part 1, and you'll understand why. But then Cillian Murphy comes in as this very tormented character, and he's such a tremendous actor. He looks nothing like Thomas Shelby in this movie whatsoever. And it's just, it's thoroughly brilliant. It kind of...
By the way, Peaky Blinders is coming back this year. Last season.
Woo!
Final season. Finally.
Fucking Peaky Blinders. But yeah, a great horror movie with a couple of
Very
jump
well
scares,
made.
but
Very well
made. Number 5, Encanto. This was, I saw this out on a whim. I didn't watch a trailer for it. I was like, but I thought I'll go watch it, and I was pleasantly surprised
Yeah.
at how well it was.
Nice music. Very nice.
A lot of people, I say a lot of people, but some people have mentioned discussions regarding to Coco. It isn't. There is it's a Disney film, so there are sort of magical elements to it, and it does, in the same way that Coco was about sort of embracing the culture in Mexico. I forget, you may have to look this up. I think, was it Cuba or Puerto Rico?
Coco.
No, Encanto.
It was Cuba.
Was it?
I think it was Cuba.
If we got that wrong, I do apologize. But the respective country that it was set in, it was very clear that it was a celebration of a particular village within this story, and it was. I mean, I argued that it was one of the best superheroes films of the year because they all have like a special power, and these magic doors are in the house, and
Yeah, it was nice. It was a good film.
it was incredibly sweet. A very good, again, a family movie. So I always go see it on my own because I'm unattached. With I'm not married or with that. I don't have any children. So even with myself just watching on my own, it was incredibly entertaining.
It,
and I
it was a
think-
new type of film because it didn't really have a villain. It was just this family dynamic that
I
was
think
going on. And it wasn't grand. It wasn't one single location.
Yes.
So I think it was pretty good. It was
and
very
we,
good.
we don't talk about Bruno, which I found out that it's actually, this is the first time a Disney Pixar film has reached the UK top 10. Which for people who don't live in England is like the top 10 songs of the week.
Was it Bruno? We don't talk about Bruno. Was it?
No, which one was it?
Was it the Strong Chicks music?
I can't remember which one it was. I'll have to double check.
Talking about pressure. And
Yeah, that was a great. There was something as well that they read because the sister who has the muscles, I've forgotten the names of the characters, so I do apologize. The lead character in the marketing department, they didn't think that the sister with the big muscles would sell that well.
Right.
But she's become the most popular character, especially with young girls.
she had the best song.
She
had
did have a tremendous song, and so they made all this kind of marketing and toys and pajamas and all that shit for the protagonist, who was an incredibly interesting character, but they didn't think this quote unquote sort of masculine-esque character with the big muscles.
She was very feminine inside, but appearance-wise, she was.
Yeah, no, she was a superb, complex
it
character, and I think it was incredibly foolish on
well
Disney's side to not think we'll find a balance in terms of like making toys and the marketing and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And now they're in a rut because they have got all these toys that aren't selling because they didn't make any toys of the most popular character. So, boo-hoo, Disney. Number 4. Now, I think this is my sort of wild card because I saw this like February last year, about roughly this time last year. And this is a film on Netflix. I didn't see this at the pictures. Called The Dig. It had Ralph Fiennes
Oh, you told me
and Carey
about
Mulligan.
this. Yeah.
What a beautiful! I've described it. This sounds so cheesy, but the best way I can describe it is it's like rainfall on a window on a Sunday afternoon. It is just so beautiful and peaceful.
The way you described it now, I want to watch it.
It was so calming as well to not see, to have such an interesting story. And there is a story there. There is there is an Act 1, 2, 3. and it's basically about a gentleman who I believe was a farmer. He worked on this estate, and this young woman who had a child, she falls ill, and she has an excavation on some land, and he's incredibly knowledgeable, and there are some people like archaeologists and things who get involved with the excavation, and they don't want him around, even though that he's incredibly like he knows what the fuck he's doing. And basically, it was an incredibly good archaeological dig. They found lots of great stuff, and he was wiped from all records of the dig. And I think we didn't find out till about 10 years ago that he even existed. And so this movie is in honor of all the work that he did. It is a tremendous movie, and I think as well, just kind of like one of those just like little stories.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out.
It's
because
so beautiful.
It
Please
sounds very
watch it,
interesting.
because I think it got a couple of BAFTA nominations, but
Right.
it was snubbed by the Academy, and it was just incredibly beautiful. It was just one of those, as I was saying earlier, maybe not the most complex and interesting story, but for me, it was just a very simple, well-told story. And as we were saying earlier about empathy, you really empathize with these characters, and
Right.
yeah, just incredibly beautiful. Number 3, excuse me, we're just facing some technical
It's
difficulties.
alright. It's alright.
Number 3, I've seen this 3 times, twice in IMAX. Spider-Man: No Way Home.
Wait, you watched it again on IMAX without me?
Yeah,
I wanted to watch it
Salzburg.
on IMAX.
I think it's still on IMAX. We'll go watch it
I
next
didn't
week.
get to watch it on IMAX, but
Yeah, I took a couple of friends to. Well, I took a bunch of friends to go see it. Not the gentleman opposite me though.
yeah, and he's gonna get his due punishment.
I'm gonna get bish slapped. But yeah, Spider-Man: No Way Home. I feel like there's very little. Are we allowed to talk about all the spoilers yet?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, spoiler close now if you've not seen it, but if you haven't, you've been living under a rock. Toby and Andrew. Oh my god. It was just.
Was such a great character dynamic. It was.
It was just so. I can respect the story was questionable, but I think we kind of knew that it was going to be a big deal, and it was. And I think most importantly as well, like the final hour, maybe hour and a half of the movie, so good. Well, the second half of the movie, if you want to say, just was superb, well executed.
First half, it was too many jokes, too much.
Yeah, it was
I mean,
a little.
it had a bit of too much Marvel side of it, and not enough Spider-Man. So that's what it didn't make it the
But
best
it was
Spider-Man
just
film.
Like, to watch Andrew and Toby.
Because people ask me like, how would you rank it in Spider-Man
Yeah.
films? To me, it's like number 4. Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 1, Into the Spider-Verse, then this one.
Okay.
How's it for you?
I've not seen Into the Spider-Verse. I think I've watched about an hour of it. I
Right.
know people are going to hate me
Because
for
in my
it.
opinion, nothing beats the first 2 Spider-Man films. It
They were
just the-
superb. I mean, I
the
do have
way they
I
make
do have a
them.
soft spot for Spider-Man 3 just because.
It's just the way Sam Raimi made them. He did
Yeah.
cheesy perfectly. He did the cheesy superhero
Yeah.
kind of shtick.
I'm interested to see what he does with.
Multiverse of
Multiverse of Madness,
One
yeah.
of the films I'm looking forward to. Yes.
It should be fun.
So great film, and definitely in the top 10. Not my top 5, but one of the best.
But yeah, an incredible movie. So the last 2, this was. I don't think it was. I don't know if it was the first movie that I saw when I came back, but it really was a stellar movie, and it got. So the number 1 spot knocked it out the moment I watched it, but the number 2 spot did remain number 1 on my list for several months, and that was by Shaka King, and it was called Judas and the Black Messiah.
Yes, you told me about this.
What a beautiful, incredible movie. Jesse Plemons, I just want to say off the back as well, is one of these actors where he really does not get enough credit for how well he is. He's a superb actor. He's in Power of the Dogs, which neither of us have watched yet, but it's certainly on our list. But yeah, he was in this movie, and the other actors, Daniel Kaluuya, as we mentioned before, who was in Get Out, he won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for playing Fred Hampton, who was the head of a chapter of the Black Panther Party. Not the Wakanda one, but it was just an incredibly well-made movie. I just thoroughly enjoyed it was just again, as we were saying, like, you really empathize with the situation. The Lakeith Stanfield, that's his name. My apologies. Lakeith Stanfield was the other. You kind of had two main protagonists, really, Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield, and the chemistry was superb. I just thoroughly enjoyed it. It was an incredibly interesting.
I'm surprised to
story.
know what the number one is now, because I knew Judah and the Black Messiah was the number one on your list for
for a
months.
long time.
Yes.
Some people were quite surprised, but this was the one film that I was incredibly excited about. I saw it twice. In the end,
Did it come out in 2021 though?
yeah, it came out, and that is. Should we type it in?
Yes.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Oh, jeez, I thought you were talking about my number one spot.
Oh, what's your number one spot?
So yeah, this was 2021.
Yes. Okay. I thought it was 20,
And then
2020 for some reason.
I'll type in and we'll do like a big reveal for the number one spot.
Go ahead. Last night in Soho. I knew it. I didn't know it, but
Last Night in Soho.
I should have guessed.
Last Night in Soho. What a wonderful, intriguing movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was incredibly excited for this movie, and it did not disappoint. It was so wonderful, so brilliant. He completely rips off a Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger film from the 40s called The Matter of Life and Death, which is another movie you should go and watch. There's a scene with a staircase towards the end, which is a complete rip-off.
Right.
But it is an incredibly intriguing movie, and some people have argued, it's not. It doesn't feel like an Edgar Wright movie. It does, and I think for me, I kind of had not reservations about it, but I was really worried because in film school, what you'll find is, especially when it comes to editing, Edgar Wright has a unique style that we all love and adore, especially when it comes to editing, and you kind of find I found this with a lot of. I'm not sort of stereotyping. I find this with a lot of students. That it's kind of like you have Edgar Wright movies and then there's every other movie. And so all these great editors from other films just get completely shunned out for the incredibly hard work that they do because his style is unique to him and so different.
Right.
So I was a bit worried about this film, but it really did not disappoint.
It was a good film. It was a good film.
It was incredibly well
It was my number 6.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But it was an incredibly well executed film, and the actors, Thomason Mackenzie.
The guy who.
No, the girl. What's her name?
Is this girl?
No, the brunette. Is it Thomason Mackenzie? What's her name? No, scroll down the cast.
Where was it? Where's the cast?
Thomason. That's probably not his. My apologies. But yeah, Anya Taylor-Joy,
Anya is
Matt
just
Smith, the other actor. Oh, I can't remember his name. But yeah, the entire cast was superb. It was an incredibly, very well made movie. So if you do get the chance to watch it, please do.
Very nice. I'll
It
quickly
was
give my
Terrence Stamp. That was it. The silver-haired gentleman, as he's referred to on the Internet Movie
He
Database.
was a very good actor. I'll quickly give you my top 5. You guys are gonna be surprised. Got lots of DC stuff in there. Number 5, The Suicide Squad. And
Okay.
the first time I watched it, I was like, yeah, it was alright. I watched this film 4 times so far.
Jesus Christ!
And I
Go on.
love this film. Every time it gets more hilarious. I think it's a timeless movie. James Gunn blew it out of the park.
I think the
Very
Peacemaker
nice.
is a bit of a shit character, but whatever. Couldn't stand him.
Peacemaker, again, one of my favorite shows so far this year.
Not watched it.
Amazing.
Have no interest.
Amazing movie. I loved it. Suicide Squad.
Mm.
That runtime just go by like, because it's so entertaining to watch. It's so
Yeah.
entertaining. I like it more than Guardians of the Galaxy. And then number 4, Zack Snyder's Justice League. I was looking.
Can you count that as a movie? Because it was like a 4-part miniseries, wasn't it?
No, it was released as a movie.
Oh, was it? My apologies. Continue.
And then it doesn't work as a miniseries anyway. But to see such a contrast between 2 different films, I mean, their ideology and how they go about directing is different too. Because Joss Whedon is like, there was like a controversy. I know you don't like that word, between actors and Joss Whedon. Like Ray Fisher was like,
I
he
don't
was
like the word,
racist.
but I know of the controversy.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yes,
Ray Fisher was like, oh, he's racist. Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot was like, oh, he forced me to do the scenes I didn't want to do, and he told me if you don't read it, if you don't do this, I'm gonna ruin your career. So he's got a very strict way of filmmaking and directing.
What a
where it's
knobhead.
like, where he's like,
Yeah.
you have to do it exactly as I tell you to do it, and you got Zack Snyder, where everyone was like, he allows a bit more creative freedom during
Yeah.
production. Where it's like, okay, you can improvise. If you think like a line has to be said, a line has to be changed, go for it. Try that.
Yeah.
We'll decide.
And writers respect you changing their words,
Yes.
obviously, as well.
But-
yeah, go on.
But I mean, Zack Snyder
Yeah, no,
himself
no,
wrote it,
absolutely,
so to see such a contrast between these two films, I don't know if you watched it, but I think Zack Snyder's Justice League was an amazing film. Even though it was 4 hours, it was very well done with what he had. And despite the tragedy that he went through prior to releasing
of
the
course.
Snyder Cut, I think he did a fantastic job. Just the movie had soul. I liked it. I enjoyed it,
Yeah.
even though it was 4 hours. Number 3, The Green Knight. I don't know if you watched this yet.
I
It
didn't
was
in the
released-
end. It was on my watch list, and I didn't watch it. I
It's
do
one of
intend to
these
watch it though.
low budget films, fantasy, King Arthur, myths.
Yeah.
Amazing film. I'm not going to spoil anything to you. Just go watch it if you have the time. Very well done. One of these high concept films. I enjoyed it. Very good film. Very well
Dev
produced.
Patel is a superb actor as well. I think he's one of the best
Yeah.
that England have to offer. There was a film that came out a few years ago called Lion, which I think is one of the strongest performances of not just his, but certainly ones that I've seen in recent years.
Yeah.
So yeah, go watch The Green Knight.
Dave
and I'll
Patel.
go watch it as well.
Yeah, he was worried because of his performance in the Last Airbender, which was just abysmal. Not his performance, just the movie in general. Because M.
Yeah,
Night
yeah.
Shyamalan just. Because that series is legendary to a lot of people, to me included. It's one of the best series ever made.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Last Airbender. Have you watched it, Last Airbender? It's okay. Yeah, you'll watch it one day.
Yeah,
when
of
you have
course.
kids. When you have kids. Okay. Number 2,
Dun-dun-dun.
Dune. And
Dune. Yeah, go on.
Dune had so much anticipation because Dune book series is regarded as the mother of all sci-fi books. To a lot of people, it's a book that inspired
Yeah, yeah.
Star Wars, a lot of other books that came about. So people were worried that it's not gonna hold up, especially when it's a two-parter, because the book doesn't
Well, yeah,
work
because
as a two-parter. Yeah,
because they've made adaptations before, which
Yeah.
fundamentally failed. Yeah.
and he had to cut it at a weird part where
okay.
in the book you just read it and it goes to the next part. It doesn't feel like an end of a
Well, yeah, that's
section.
you
it
turn the
doesn't-
page and
But yeah, I think it was directed beautifully. The cinematography, fantastic. Visual narrative, again, fantastic. Acting, the concepts,
yeah.
with that little time they had, I think they made a very good adaptation of the book. And number 1, pretty sure you know this already.
Dun-dun-dun. Do I? Oh yes, I do. It is on my list. I think it is the best train movie I have seen in so many years.
Demon Slayer, Mugen Train.
Mutant Rain.
I think it was the best piece of media I've seen in the cinema in the last couple of years. Just the amount of emotion that this film had, and that's why I started talking about the Eastern cinema versus
Yeah.
Western cinema, where the way they do it, they have so much emotion in the way they direct and visualize. The visual storytelling is so strong, and the emphasis on the emotional layers of their stories is so
Yeah.
profound, and it's long lasting. Like I watched this film 6-7 times. I absolutely love it because right now the season,
Nerd. Yeah.
because season 2 is right now playing too. But I think the first villain was a bit annoying. I mean, his voice was annoying, but I think it was a perfect villain to
Is this
drive
the
the
one that
narrative.
morphs into the train? Or
Yeah,
the-
yeah. It was
Yeah.
the guy who
That was fucking weird.
it was the guy that put him into sleep.
I'm not an anime personally, I've had many people over the years try and get me into it, and I do intend to. So this was the first time I was, I like, because I saw this as well. It is on my list, but not in my top 15, and that's just purely because I'm not.
It was the guy
very-
that put him to sleep, you know.
Oh, I've not watched it in ages, but
But give them the dreams. Like the way. Did I put demon correctly?
apologies, audience. I keep on yawning, but I'm very knackered.
Like it was directed beautifully to me. It was weird.
Yeah, that last half an hour with the flamethrower sword guy. As you can tell, I'm very well versed in the world of.
Like this scene, like any. Like this looked like a photorealistic to me when I first saw this scene. You know, this looks so good the way the You know the budget for this film?
Go on.
How much do you think? 15 million.
15.
15.
I was going to say maybe like 20, 40 million maybe.
15 million. That's how much they spent.
Quite incredible.
The music is incredible.
Yeah, I think it's important to say as well, like as someone like myself who isn't sort of well versed in the world of anime, specifically this TV series and then movie, I still enjoyed myself. The only reason why it's not made my top 15 is because I'm not familiar with the whole story. But I did quite enjoy it when I kind of got an
I
understanding
feel
of
like
it.
you even enjoy it even more because it's got a high rewatchability.
Yeah, especially that
value, you
last,
know?
that final, like the half an hour was just so
And
so intriguing.
and the manga is finished, so the manga is like their comics, right? So
Oh, okay.
if you read it,
yeah.
and you can watch the seasons. If you watch it or if you read it, it's gonna even be more impressive what
Yeah.
they can do with the stories. This Attack on Titan, so I think a fantastic movie in general, you know. So it was my number one. Let's see if the movie this year can top this.
Maybe. I don't. We've not got time to discuss 2022, have we?
Yeah.
Um,
That's going to be for a part 2, so make sure you like this video. And let's
Yes.
thank
Now
our
that now that
guest.
I know which bus to get here to, I'm sure if he wants me to come back, and if you guys do as well,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
15 of you,
We're definitely
if
going to
you've-
have you back, bro.
If you've enjoyed the company this evening, I'll
Mr.
certainly
Mr.
come
Patrick Anthony Cerra.
back. Yeah.
Thank you for coming, my friend.
Thank you very
It was
much.
nice
Appreciate
having
it.
you. And see you guys later.